The young man suffers from a strange disease. His brain loses control, continuously reliving every memory of the past, including even the bits of information deeply buried in his mind. He can also collect and analyze that information. Fortunately, each attack lasts only a moment, and then his body, unable to bear it, shuts down on its own. While the symptom lasts, he suffers from severe headaches. Fortunately, thanks to the special medication his mother provides, he can keep it under control. Our protagonist, Zhang Yuanqing, wakes once more bathed in cold sweat, as if he has just escaped from an especially intense nightmare. A decidedly unpromising start to the day. The cause is a strange condition that overloads his brain with constant memories and analysis, causing migraines so brutal they leave him exhausted in his own bed. Unfortunately, this disease that gives him incredible control and memory comes with the terrible side effect of a headache that could split a mountain in two. His only salvation is a special medicine his mother obtained abroad, a small vial that is the only thing keeping his mind under control and the pain at bay. With a sigh of exhaustion, he prepares to face another day, feeling that the battle against his own mind grows increasingly difficult. As soon as he steps out of his room, his grandmother tells him a package has arrived for him, a delivery that will change his life forever. Resigned, he takes his daily dose, though lately he's felt the medication's effects diminishing dangerously, as if his body were growing accustomed to it. The door closes behind him, but the sense that his protective shield is weakening leaves him deeply uneasy about what will happen when the pills stop working. In the living room, his young, lively aunt greets him enthusiastically, inviting him to go shopping as the perfect excuse to escape a dull blind date. As he absent-mindedly agrees, he holds the mysterious package in his hands, unaware that its contents are about to drag him into a world of supernatural phenomena and deadly peril. Holding the mysterious package from Hangzhou, our hero frowns when he can't find the sender's name, an omen of the mysteries to come. Suddenly, an icy chill runs down his spine, a premonition of danger so intense that his pupils constrict like those of a cornered beast. The family matriarch, with the fury of a war god, unleashes a devastating strike on her poor grandson, threatening to break his legs for being his aunt's accomplice. His grandmother, with an expression that would make demons tremble, reminds him that her threats are not empty words but sentences of imminent pain. His aunt, a master of deceit, uses him as a human shield, arguing that her nephew needs new clothes to woo maidens, an excuse as clever as it is brazen. But the grandmother, whose wisdom surpasses that of many sages, sees through the ruse and exposes the true plan. The aunt is trying to escape her own blind date. Fleeing the family battlefield, Zhang Yuanqing decides to withdraw strategically to his room to examine the package, leaving the two factions to continue their verbal war. Once safe in his sanctuary, he begins to open the box. Just as he hears his aunt's triumphant cry, she has successfully escaped her responsibilities. Inside the package he finds not an ancient treasure nor a cultivation manual, but an enigmatic black card, smooth and without any apparent inscriptions. The texture is exquisite, and our naive protagonist speculates that it might be the VIP card of some exclusive club, unaware that he has just received an invitation to a realm of nightmares and power. Tucking the enigmatic black card into his pocket with a nonchalance that defies fate, our protagonist decides to investigate the other contents of the package. Inside the box, he discovers a letter that at last promises to shed some light on the mysterious sender of such a peculiar gift. The letter is from his blood brother, Lei Yibing, who confesses to having found an artifact capable of altering life itself, but whose own abilities were insufficient to master it, now entrusting it to him as a gift of brotherly faith. A fleeting memory crosses his mind, the image of a young, fierce Lei Yibing defending him from bullies, his protector and older brother since the days when they were merely carefree children. With a shadow of suspicion crossing his face, our hero completely misreads the situation, believing the card to be an invitation to a den of vice and lamenting how his noble brother has been corrupted by the world. Determined to confront his friend about this supposed descent into depravity, he dials his number, initiating a call that, instead of answers, will only bring even grimmer news. He lifts the receiver, starting a call that, unbeknownst to him, will open the doors to an unfathomable mystery. He begins to flatter his brother Bing for his excellent judgment, only to discover with horror that the person who answers is his friend's father, creating an atmosphere of profound unease. Stammering like a novice before a great master, he clumsily tries to ask after his friend, feeling a cold sweat run down the back of his neck at the unexpected presence of Uncle Lei. Uncle Lei's deep, anguish-laden voice pronounces his name, and in that instant an ominous premonition strikes him like a celestial hammer. The news falls like thunder. His sworn brother, Lei Yibing, has disappeared, a revelation that brings our hero's world to a dead halt. In disbelief, he hears the impossible details. Lei Yibing vanished from his own bedroom, a sealed space that the cameras attest he never left. His roommate's testimony only adds fuel to the fire of the mystery, for he confirms that he simply turned away, and when he looked back, his friend was gone. The idea of vanishing into thin air seems like a children's tale to him, an impossibility his logical mind refuses to accept, leading him to suspect a flawlessly executed kidnapping. Trying to be a pillar in the storm, he comforts the distraught father and offers to use his family's influence at the public security office, a favor only true brothers dare to ask. The call ends, but the silence that follows is laden with unanswered questions and the shadow of a danger that transcends all human logic. Alone in his room, our hero switches into detective mode, connecting the pieces of an impossible puzzle, a disappearance, a letter, and a mysterious black card. Determined to examine the key evidence, he reaches into his pocket with the confidence of someone guarding an invaluable treasure. Panic washes over him when his fingers find nothing, a void where the card should be, bringing on a cold sweat fit for a horror movie. It vanished into thin air, the same impossible magic trick that had taken his friend, a coincidence so terrifying it could freeze hell. Connecting the card's disappearance with his friend's, our protagonist's brain begins to overheat, searching for a pattern in the supernatural chaos. The migraine hits with the force of a divine hammer, a pain that forces him to search for his pills as the name of his lost brother rings in his mind. Forcing his special ability to rewind memory, he suffers a nosebleed, the blood price he pays for defying the limits of the human mind. The flashback reveals the truth. His friend entrusted him with the artifact because he distrusted the authorities, betting on the protection that Zhang Yuanqing's family, with its police connections, could offer. His brother's words ring like an echo of fate. If it were you, it shouldn't be a problem. A burden of trust as heavy as a mountain. Enduring excruciating pain, he understands the magnitude of the gift, a dangerous power, an inheritance from brother to brother, sealed with trust, and now with his own blood. With the sweat of exertion still beading on his skin, he takes the 2 pills he has left, his only remedy for the self-inflicted pain. Just then, his grandmother's voice echoes from the hallway, announcing that investigators from the Kanyang Public Security Bureau have come looking for him. He turns sharply, surprise etched across his face as the light from outside frames the arrival of an unexpected interrogation. Suspicion flares in his eyes. His own cousin's unit turning up at his door at this very moment is too perfect to be a coincidence. While his grandmother defends him fiercely, he stealthily hides the letter under a flower pot, making sure the only physical evidence is out of sight. With a quick flick of his thumb, he deletes the call log with his friend's father, erasing any digital trace that links him to the mystery. He leaves his room to face the visitors, whose presence, confirmed by his grandmother, fills the air with an almost palpable tension. At his grandmother's warning not to scheme behind her back, a spark of defiance flashes through his mind, wondering if doing it in front of her would be acceptable. His gaze settles on the 3 visitors, instantly recognizing them as his cousin's colleagues, a group with a decidedly peculiar appearance. Displaying a calm he does not feel, he invites them in, preparing for a battle of wits in which every word could be a deadly trap. The interrogation begins without preamble, and our hero, with the calm of a master swordsman, confirms his bond of brotherhood with Lei Yibing as he asks about his friend's whereabouts. As he leads them to the room, his mind works at lightning speed, calculating the implications of this unannounced visit by his own cousin's colleagues. With a courteous gesture, he invites them to sit, a facade of hospitality that conceals the storm of thoughts raging within him. The group's leader reveals the reason for their visit, Lei Yibing's disappearance, and a final trace that connects him to the world, a package sent to Zhang Yuanqing. The surprise he displays is worthy of an Academy Award, an outburst of disbelief upon hearing the news, playing his part to perfection. After the initial outburst, his face becomes a mask of steel, his blue eyes fixed on the investigators, evaluating each of their movements. With sharp cunning, he dodges the question about the package's contents, mentioning that he had just received it and that the absence of a cinder left him puzzled. Then, with a conviction that could deceive the gods themselves, he declares that the package was completely empty. In his mind, he justifies himself with impeccable logic. If the card vanished into thin air, it's as if it had never been there. So technically he isn't lying. The investigator, an old fox who's seen 1,000 deceptions, suggests a voluntary inspection of his room, a polite request with the edge of a veiled threat. With the resignation of a martyr, he consents to a search of his quarters, declaring that it's a fine way to demonstrate his spotless innocence. The leader of the motley group, with a wave of his hand, instructs the seductive investigator to proceed, unleashing her craftiest talent. She approaches with feline grace and asks for his phone, a simple gesture that causes a short circuit in the brain of our blushing protagonist. Stammering with all the eloquence of a stone, he hands over the device, his face a vivid portrait of panic and youthful embarrassment. With cheeks aflame, he admits the phone contains prized self-study material, to which she responds with a mischievous smile, assuring him she'll only look for relevant information. While the search is underway, and to maintain his role as a devoted friend, he turns to the leader to inquire about the case, fearing that silence will make him seem more suspicious. The investigator tells him the same story he'd already heard, a fantastical account of an impossible disappearance that doesn't provide a single drop of new information. His sharp blue eyes analyze the situation, coldly concluding that either the police are a nest of incompetence, or this old fox is concealing vital information from him. As he drinks the tea the grandmother offers, the leader warns him with chilling calm that he must report any clue he finds to them, concealing absolutely nothing. Then the warning turns into an icy threat, as he assures him that if he doesn't cooperate, he could be the next to disappear. With a forced smile that barely conceals the storm inside him, he thanks them for the warning, correctly interpreting the veiled threat of the shrewd investigator. A sudden jolt pulls him out of his thoughts as the inspection of his most private possessions comes to an end. The seductive investigator announces with professional calm that the search is over, returning his gaze with disconcerting confidence. A mischievous, secret-filled smile plays on her lips, an expression that betrays she has discovered more than just clues about the case. Steam almost billows from his ears as his face flushes crimson, realizing with horror that his personal research library has been completely exposed. Despite the humiliation, he maintains the composure of a young gentleman and accepts the leader's business card, seeing off the peculiar trio with impeccable courtesy. At the door, he sincerely asks them to inform him of any news, maintaining his facade of a concerned friend until the last second. Once alone with his grandmother, the weight of the situation hits him, and, feigning a headache, he excuses himself to retreat to the solitude of his room. Before disappearing, he gives his grandmother one final instruction: mobilize his grandfather, the retired police chief, to contact the Lei family and launch his own investigation. While the sun shines on the building's tranquil facade, a seed has bing planted within its walls for a conspiracy that transcends the mortal realm. Away from mortal eyes, in the opulence of an armored vehicle, the fate of the young Zhang Yuanxing was being discussed. Holding a glass of wine like a decadent emperor, the squad leader, Li Dongzi, asked his subordinate for the results of her investigation. With the aura of a goddess revealing a celestial secret, investigator Guanya triumphantly announced that she had made a momentous discovery. The leader's patience, sharp as a guillotine blade, manifested in a single word: speak. She began her report by detailing the discovery of hidden folders with names as poetic as Madness Thursday, a trove of forbidden knowledge. A vein throbbed at the leader's temple, his expression hidden behind sunglasses that barely contained his monumental irritation. Guanya continued his psychological profile, describing his fondness for black stockings, a social life limited to video game guilds, and his nature as a digital recluse. "Good heavens!" exclaimed the leader, hand to his face, lamenting that his brightest agent had the sense of humor of an alley ruffian. She simply shrugged with a mischievous smile, declaring that a little humor was necessary so as not to become as boring as he was. Finally, abandoning the jokes, she revealed the true discovery: a letter hidden beneath a flower pot, the irrefutable proof that Lei Yibing had given her a character card of a still unknown class. The squad leader, Li Dongzi, processes the newly obtained information in silence, his face an impenetrable mask of seriousness. Reclining in the luxury of his vehicle, Li Dongzi exhales a plume of smoke, the confidence of a predator who has located his prey. With a half-smile on his lips, he issues Guanya a chilling order: come back tomorrow, but only if the boy hasn't disappeared by then. As the sun dyes the city's horizon in hues of fire and blood, time for our hero begins to run out. Back in the solitude of his digital sanctuary, Zhang Yuanxing sits at his desk, his mind spinning in a whirlwind of speculation and peril. Putting himself into strategist mode, he deduces that if the target is the black card, then the Public Security Office is not the only player on this deadly board. A third group lurks in the shadows. He reasons that his friend Lei Yibing clearly distrusted the authorities, which means the eccentric trio who visited him could be either hostile or an unexpected ally. Weighing his options, he concludes that the safest course is to confess the whole truth to his cousin, the only pawn he could move with some certainty in this supernatural chess game. But panic engulfs him when he realizes two catastrophic flaws in his plan. He cannot contact his cousin, and explaining the magic of a disappearing card would be madness, impossible to believe. Just as his mind is about to collapse from despair, A knock at the door and his aunt's voice calling him bring him sharply back to the tense reality. His young aunt's fury lashes at the door of his sanctuary, accusing him of cowardice for ignoring her calls and divine messages. Unfazed by the storm of reproach, he simply replies, "I'm coming," unaware that a far greater storm is brewing inside him. Suddenly, searing heat and a sharp pain assault his mind, an unmistakable sign that an arcane power has begun to awaken. The pain becomes unbearable, forcing him to double over as if a demon were trying to tear his skull apart from the inside. While his aunt demands that he defend his honor from imaginary thugs, he struggles against an inner fire that threatens to consume his very conscience. In a moment of silent agony, the outside world fades away, leaving only the titanic battle waged in the depths of his soul. Unaware of the cataclysm occurring a few meters away, the grandmother dismisses the aunt with the excuse of a mere headache, shifting the topic to the trivial results of the blind date. His aunt, with a logic that would baffle the greatest sages, rejects a millionaire suitor for the unforgivable sin of earning too much money. Meanwhile, our hero's silhouette is outlined against the dusk, the pain ebbing to give way to a silent, terrible understanding. His eyes snap open, reflecting not pain but revelation. The black card had not vanished, it had fused with him. Looking into the mirror, his own reflection looks back like that of a stranger, for a black, ring-shaped mark now adorns his forehead like the eye of an abyss. Inspecting the mark more closely, he discovers with astonishment a progress bar blinking at 90%, a countdown toward the unknown. A flash of understanding crosses his mind as he recognizes the black moon pattern of the card, and a terrifying question arises. What apocalypse will be unleashed when it reaches 100%? Memories flow like a torrent, confirming his suspicions. The card didn't fade away but merged with his being, turning him into the vessel of its power. Bolstered by his friend's prophetic words, he finally understands the truth. This is not a mere artifact, but a gift that alters fate, the very reason his brother vanished. The energy bar jumps to 99%, the penultimate step before the veil of reality tears completely. Panic seizes him. His composure as a master strategist shatters in the face of the imminent, unknown transformation. With the reset complete, a celestial screen appears before him, revealing his new attributes: class, god of the night, and a moral warning that compels him to be a good boy. The holographic interface reflects in his eyes, and an otaku-worthy epiphany strikes him. He has truly become the protagonist of a web novel. The system, with the impatience of a bored god, demands that he name his character immediately, marking the first step in his new and dangerous life. The system presents him with a divine brush forged from light, the tool with which he must write his new identity. With a sigh of disappointment, he bemoans that the artificial intelligence is too rudimentary, frustrated that his overpowered ability requires such an archaic manual effort. With the innocence of a novice, he writes his mortal name on the celestial screen, a simple act before the gates of the unknown. An ominous red glow floods the interface, forbidding him from using his true name, the first and most crucial rule of this new and dangerous world. Forced to abandon his earthly identity, he ponders which alias to adopt, a name worthy of a being about to walk among gods and demons. A spark of divine inspiration lights his mind, an idea so grand and bold it could only belong to a future sovereign. With a decisive sweep of his ethereal brush, he inscribes the name of a primordial deity, Yuanshi Tianzuan, an alias of supreme power and arrogance. The system accepts his bold choice and wishes him luck, announcing the imminent opening of the spiritual realm in 10 short seconds. Sudden reality hits him, his face a mix of awe and apprehension as he realizes he is about to be hurled into a new plane of existence. The countdown begins, each number a hammer blow of fate, drawing him inexorably closer to his first and mortal trial. The celestial countdown continues its relentless descent, each number an echo of destiny rushing closer at breakneck speed. The final second fades in a flash of pure light, marking the end of his known world and the birth of a new legend. An ethereal voice welcomes him to the Yuling Tunnel, map number 0079 of the spirit realm, a name that reeks of trouble. The system, with a macabre sense of humor, informs him that his first trial is a single-player dungeon of S difficulty, and, to make matters worse, of the lethal type. His first main mission, a goal as simple as it is terrifying, is to survive for 3 hours in this personal hell. As if surviving weren't enough, a second mission orders him to explore the realm, a divine incentive not to stand there like a frightened duck, to rub salt in the wound. A final note clarifies that he has entered completely stripped of resources, since no item from the mortal world can cross the veil. His consciousness flickers between darkness and confusion. The interdimensional journey, leaving him more disoriented than a monk in a casino. Feeling the cold rock beneath his fingers, he clenches his fist, a surge of determination anchoring him to this new, somber reality. Materializing in the gloom of an ancient cavern, the question slips from his lips, a whisper lost in the immensity of his first dungeon. Where am I? The system, like an unfurled ancient scroll, begins to project the ominous backstory directly into his mind. The legend of the Yuling Tunnel comes to life, one of Shanghai's 10 great urban legends, where a team of workers vanished into the gloom on a rainy night. The tragic story of the sole survivor, whose mind was shattered by an indescribable terror, is reflected in the blood red of his pupil. And with the story comes the lone, cryptic warning of the unfortunate man, a mantra of madness repeated to the end. Do not enter the temple. His shadow stretches across the dusty ground, a solitary presence in the vast and unsettling darkness that envelopes him. A trembling sigh escapes his lips, the tunnel's cold air a tangible reminder of the nightmare he has awakened into. The terrible realization strikes him like lightning. He is in a hellish recreation of the legendary Yuling Tunnel, the very one spoken of in horror tales. He takes a hesitant step forward, the sound of his footfall the only echo in the sepulchral silence of the cavern. A hysterical laugh bursts from his throat as he realizes that this place is not the real tunnel he visited days ago, but a twisted, far older version. His body trembles uncontrollably as he struggles to recall a crucial detail, an ancient memory that could be the key to his survival. Without a doubt, he has stumbled upon a full-fledged supernatural phenomenon, a truth as undeniable as it is terrifying. With the cool mind of a strategist, he analyzes his situation. He has been dragged into an urban legend to complete 2 S-rank missions in a deadly single-player dungeon. His keen intellect quickly deciphers the language of the gods. Survive is synonymous with extreme danger, and explore means venturing into the maw of this very tunnel. Logic whispers to him that a great risk must entail a great reward, for even the celestial realms do not demand sacrifices without offering a treasure in return. He remembers the status panel that anointed him as a night god, a divine class that should be the prize at the end of this path of thorns. He finally understands his brother's prophecy. The black card was a key to change his life, but he ignored the warning about the lock it open. The phrase difficult to handle now resonates in his mind with a sinister meaning, for it referred to the danger level of a mortal-type spirit realm. The tunnel itself seems to come alive to kill him, as an old mine cart derails and hurtles into the abyss with a metallic crash. A rhythmic, ominous sound, like the dragging of a ghost's feet, begins to echo from the depths of the cavern, announcing unwelcome company. He spins around abruptly. Icy terror seizes him when he finds himself face to face with a humanoid silhouette that has materialized out of nowhere behind him. Terror paralyzes our hero as he feels an icy presence materializing directly behind him. His eyes drop to meet gray, cadaverous feet, from which tiny spectral flames spring forth, defying all logic. The figure reveals itself fully, an undead miner, his body a desiccated shell and his clothes torn by the passage of eons. A nightmare face looms over him, empty sockets burning with a crimson fire, an eternal grimace etched into his parchment-like skin. As if a macabre joke by the gods, an entire legion of these creatures rises from the shadows, their red eyes a sea of infernal embers. A desiccated corpse, his mind screams, his face a mask of pure panic as he realizes he has stumbled upon hell's welcoming committee. Survival instinct takes over and, with a scream that would make a banshee tremble, he turns and runs for his life as if the devil himself were on his heels. But then one of the creatures extends its bony hand, not to attack, but to point out a path in the darkness. The leader of the horde opens its jaw in a silent scream, its index finger pointing with unmistakable insistence toward a single direction. Stopping at a safe distance, he looks back, confusion replacing fear as he wonders why this legion of horrors does not chase him, but instead shows him a way out. A cold bead of sweat trickles down his temple, but in his blue eyes there is no fear, only the steely gleam of a strategist on the battlefield. He turns his head and confirms his suspicions. Another horde of specters blocks his path, sealing his only escape route. He finds himself in the heart of the trap, surrounded by a circle of undead watching him in sepulchral silence, his fate apparently sealed. But then, one of the phantom miners raises his bony hand, not to attack, but to point out a path in the impenetrable darkness. With an explosion of adrenaline, he runs through the rocky canyon, a human arrow flying between 2 walls of walking corpses that simply watch him pass. He comes to a dead stop, his heart hammering in his chest, as he realizes the strange truth. These nightmare creatures have no intention of harming him. One skeletal finger after another rises in unison, all pointing the same way, a silent, macabre invitation toward an unknown destination. Guided by the dead, his gaze falls on the silhouette of an ancient temple outlined against the night sky, the only building in this desolate landscape. An evil, nearly palpable energy emanates from the sanctuary, a crimson aura that screams danger and ancient secrets. In the deep darkness above the temple, a blood-red eye opens, watching him from the veil of night, an ancient and terrible presence that has awakened. With a first step that echoes in the sepulchral silence, he begins to run, leaving the lair of the dead behind. He runs with the speed of the wind, the echo of his footsteps a desperate prayer in the darkness of the canyon. From above, his figure is a solitary blot fleeing along a dirt path, a mortal escaping the judgment of the specters. Each stride takes him farther from the heart of the tunnel, his instinct screaming at him to distance himself from the legion of undead that watched him. The image of his spectral pursuers, with their empty eye sockets and unhinged jaws, is seared into his mind like a living nightmare. Panic and confusion wrestle in his mind, for the logic of the mortal realm tells him those fiends should be tearing at his flesh, not pointing the way to salvation. Clinging to his sanity, he arrives at an inescapable conclusion, whether a trap or a divine guide. Moving away from those walking corpses is, for now, the only correct move in this infernal game. His flight takes him out of the tunnel and into a forest bathed by a moon as pale and ghostly as the guardians he has just left behind. The path twists among ancient trees, his run now a solitary marathon under the watchful gaze of the celestial orb. Suddenly, a new terror assails him, not one of claws and teeth, but of an unnatural silence. For in this enchanted forest not a single insect dares to sing. The path wound into a forest where spectral lights danced like lost souls, guiding him toward an uncertain fate. In the distance, the silhouette of an ancient building stood out against the gloom, a promise of refuge or doom. His sandals, an absurd reminder of the mortal world, finally stepped onto the cracked tiles that marked the threshold of the unknown. With a sigh that turned to vapor in the frigid air, he advanced through the overgrown courtyard, each step laden with heavy apprehension. Cobwebs as thick as shrouds hung from the rotten beams, silent witnesses to centuries of abandonment and decay. Twisted, broken beams lay on the ground like the skeleton of a colossal beast, a mute warning of the destructive power that dwelled there. Before the ruined entrance, the truth struck him with the force of a hammer. This mausoleum of despair was, or had once been, a temple. A temple. The memory of the survivor's warning rang in his mind like a funeral gong, chilling the blood in his veins. The system's voice echoed in his head, confirming the sole rule of this hell, the sacred prohibition against crossing the temple's threshold. But from high on the roof, a new and terrible logic seized him. If he was already out of the tunnel, the exploration mission could only refer to this forbidden sanctuary. A terrible suspicion forms in his mind. The horde of specters isn't chasing him, but is guiding him straight to this forbidden temple. Panic consumes him as he realizes that the two divine missions are actually one: to explore this ruined temple and survive hell for 3 hours. Desperate, he curses his absent friend, for this exclusive club turns out to be a deadly trap where moving forward is dangerous, but retreating is a certain death sentence. He swallows hard, caught in a celestial paradox. The divine voice forbids him entry, yet circumstances push him to desecrate the sanctuary. With the determination of a warrior accepting his fate, he takes a step forward, for in this realm of nightmares, only the bold have a chance to win. He crosses the dilapidated threshold, entering a courtyard where overgrowth and darkness struggle to devour the last vestiges of a sacred place. Suddenly, a warm, flickering light penetrates the gloom from inside the main building, a solitary beacon of hope in a sea of despair. An unnatural whisper from the tall grass freezes his movements, the unmistakable sound of something stalking in the shadows. He spins around abruptly, his god of night senses screaming that he is not alone, that an invisible presence is approaching stealthily. The grass stirs again, closer this time, confirming that a creature of the night has come to welcome him to its new domain. He stops dead, pricking up his ears, wondering whether the whisper in the grass is the wind or his overburdened imagination. Stalking through the undergrowth like a tiger in the night, he tries to glimpse the owner of the sound, his heart a war drum in the sepulchral silence. A shiver runs down his spine as he remembers the old wisdom. The first step to seeing a ghost is always to hear it first. Pure terror overwhelms him when invisible footprints begin to mark the dust, advancing toward him with a deliberate, macabre slowness. Sweating cold as if in an infernal sauna, he curses his luck, for he has barely entered and has already encountered a loathsome presence. In a desperate act, he attempts to negotiate with the specter, yelling at it to go avenge its true enemies and leave him alone. As he runs for his life, he pleads his innocence, admitting that his only crime in this world has been his devoted fondness for study materials. With a scream that rips the night, he launches himself toward the sanctuary's light, his instinct shouting that it is his only salvation. Driven by primal fear, his body moves at a speed that defies human limits. A black arrow fired toward the heart of the temple. With the force of a cornered beast, he smashes through the ancient wooden doors, bursting into the main hall in an explosion of splinters and panic. He lands with the grace of a meteorite, his forced entry into the sanctuary marking the beginning of a new stage in his mortal trial. Exhausted and with his heart about to burst, he collapses to the ground, gasping for the air that terror had stolen from him. Sitting on the threshold of his precarious salvation, he gazes at the moon, the only silent witness to his incursion into this realm of nightmares. From the outside, his solitary silhouette framed by the broken doorway is an image of tense calm amid the desolation of the abandoned temple. A shiver of relief runs through him when he realizes that the ghostly footsteps have faded, as if the malevolent presence dared not cross the threshold. With an ominous creak that chills the bones, the ancient doors slam shut behind him, sealing him inside his new refuge. Wiping the cold sweat from his brow, he allows himself a sigh of relief, naively believing he has found a safe haven amid the infernal storm. His gaze is drawn to the source of light, an improvised altar with flickering candles surrounding a fractured skull, casting dancing shadows. When he looks up, his breath catches in his throat at the imposing, somber statue of a forgotten deity, whose power still permeates the air. Beside the main deity, the statues of its servants watch him with empty sockets and stone smiles, silent guardians of ancient secrets. The stone smile of one of the statues seems to mock him. Its empty eye sockets a well of ancient secrets. A cold sweat runs down the back of his neck as he feels the unmistakable sensation of being watched by eyes that should not be able to see. The principal deity regards him from its pedestal, its stone face a mask of silent judgment and archaic power. The entire altar complex unfolds before him, a trinity of stone whose magnificence is only surpassed by its oppressive aura. From the base of the stairs, the scale of the statues becomes overwhelming, making him feel like an ant before the gods. In reverent silence, his attention focuses on a detail he had previously missed in the imposing figure. The goddess's left hand, clenched in an empty fist, tells him that a crucial artifact, the key to the mystery, has been stolen from her grasp. Just as he processes the clue of the empty hand, a detail at his side catches his attention, diverting his investigation. He realizes that not only do the statues hold secrets, but the very walls of the temple cry out to tell their forgotten story. As he approaches, he discovers a stele with ancient inscriptions that reveal the temple's age, a relic from the early Ming dynasty, over 500 years old. A sudden jolt shakes him, his instinct as the god of the night detecting a presence that should not be there. The question reverberates in the sepulchral silence. If the temple is abandoned, who is the ghost that lights the candles? An unnatural gleam beneath the altar catches his attention, a reflection of something lying hidden in the depths of the shadows. His eyes widen in horror as he discovers a corpse in an advanced state of decomposition hidden beneath the altar table. The flicker of the candles atop the skull seems to mock him, a macabre dance that illuminates the scene of an ancient mystery. A flash of understanding strikes him as he recognizes the remains of a worker, making him question whether the legend created this realm or this realm gave birth to the legend. A cold sweat of desperation drenches him as he realizes that, to survive this hell, he must unearth more clues from their graves. With a determination forged in the fire of fear, his eyes harden, and he decides to stake his life on a bold, desperate move. Ignoring the stench of death and the tremor in his own hands, he kneels to inspect the corpse, searching for the key that will free him from this mortal cage. He comes face to face with the visage of the nightmare, a grimace of eternal agony frozen in a skull that once belonged to one of the workers from the legend. With the cold precision of a forensic examiner, his analysis reveals broken ribs and fractures, but his hunter's instinct whispers that a secret lies concealed in the corpse's breast pocket. His fingers, ignoring the chill of death, draw from his pocket an ancient yellowed parchment, a testament written in the ink of despair. The parchment comes alive in his mind, revealing the chronicle of a temple besieged by fear, where disciples vanish into the night and suspicions of an ancient demon poison the air. The conspiracy deepens upon reading that the master himself ordered a veil of silence, while the diary's author, in a show of youthful arrogance, trusts his own talismans to face the darkness. 3 days later, with 3 more souls claimed by the night, Panic seeps into the young disciple's handwriting as he seeks answers from the enigmatic elder brother. But the elder brother becomes a wall of fury and secrets, his face a mask of rage hiding a terrible discovery, refusing to share the burden of the truth. The last hope fades when the elder brother is also swallowed by the shadows, driving the young disciple, on the brink of madness, to finally confront his silent master. The master, with a calm that chills the blood, offers him a rendezvous with fate at dusk, promising to reveal an ancient secret about the temple's prosperity and ruin. In his final entry, the disciple confesses a terrible irony. For the first time, he longs for the coming of night, the very dark mantle that had swallowed his brothers. Holding the fragments of the tragedy, our hero frowns, frustrated by such an abrupt ending, a horror story that ends at the climax, leaving him with more questions than answers. Holding the worker's will, he reasons that unraveling the mystery of the temple's collapse could be the key to completing his second main mission. Harsh reality hits him. To find more clues, he must leave the relative safety of the main hall and face the horrors lurking in the shadows. With the caution of a grave robber, he pushes the heavy door, opening a crack into the silent, expectant night. Peering outside, he wonders whether he should risk going out, for the complete absence of sound is a symphony of ill omen. A chill runs down his spine. His god of the night instinct screams that a dangerous, unnatural presence lurks in the darkness of the courtyard. Despite the paralyzing terror, he understands that staying to wait in the main hall is an invitation to death, an option he is not willing to accept. The moment of truth has arrived. With the fate of the kingdom on the sole of his ridiculous sandal, he knows he must make a decision. With the resolve of a hero forged in desperation, he leaves the sanctuary, his solitary figure outlined against the ruins and a starry sky that offers no comfort. He advances across the ruined courtyard, the sanctuary's light casting a long shadow behind him, a constant reminder of the precarious refuge he has just left. His gaze turns toward the depths of the temple complex, knowing that the answers he seeks lie somewhere beyond the crumbled walls and the tree's skeletal branches. From above, the temple complex sprawls like a labyrinth of shadows, with our hero the only living soul wandering its desolate courtyards. With the determination of a tomb explorer, he moves through the ruined alleys, his face a mask of cold concentration beneath the veil of the starry night. He steps onto an overgrown path that leads to an ominous arch, every crackle of the grass a whisper of the secrets that lie beyond. His path brings him before a macabre offering, a pile of corpses of the workers from the legend, a skeletal reminder that he is not the first to tread this cursed ground. With a wry grimace, he reflects that although he's becoming accustomed to the corpse decor, the experience remains terrifying at a 5-star level. His keen detective eye notices a crucial detail amid the horror. Although the bodies suffered terrible trauma, the shoulder blades of some skeletons are curiously intact. Suddenly, a plaintive whisper shatters the sepulchral silence, a spectral voice begging for help, causing his eyes to widen like those of a frightened cat. He lifts his gaze to a stone arch draped in the twisted branches of an ancient tree, the apparent source of the laments crying out for a savior. Panic seizes him, screaming inside that it's obvious whatever lies beyond that arch is a deadly trap, and that he is the one who truly needs help. Covering his face in despair, he silently curses his brother Bing for having sent him an invitation to this exclusive club of death. With a frustrated pout, he vows that if he survives this nightmare, he'll expose his friend's secret study materials collection to the whole world. Determined to ignore the obvious trap, he walks away from the cursed arch, seeking answers among the other ruins of the desolate temple complex. He finds refuge in a forgotten corner where cobwebs are the only tapestry adorning walls cracked by time. His exploration leads him to another macabre discovery, the intact skeleton of a laborer, yet another victim of this place's curse. His improvised forensic analysis reveals a sinister pattern. Like the first corpse, this one too has shattered shoulder blades, a coincidence too terrible to be accidental. His keen treasure hunter's eye spots a bulge in the skeleton's trouser pocket, a promise of new clues amid the desolation. With the reverence of an archaeologist, he retrieves the treasure from the corpse, a talisman, a bronze mirror, and a book bound in ancient leather. The talisman emits an aura of ancestral power. The mirror seems to reflect a world beyond the veil, and the book whispers forgotten secrets. A celestial notification interrupts his examination, the system triumphantly announcing that he has discovered an item from the spiritual realm. The divine description unfolds before him. He has found a corpse-suppressing talisman, a single-use weapon forged by a night god to seal creatures of darkness. With the logic of a veteran player, he deduces that the talisman is a crucial quest item, since it was the only thing that triggered a system notification. With the gaze of a scholar about to decipher a forbidden text, His attention now centers on the ancient manuscript. He opens the book, expecting to find a secret cultivation manual, but instead he comes across the memoirs of a forgotten soul. The diary recounts the life of a young disciple of the temple of the mountain goddess Sandow, his yearning for initiation, and his wait for his master's return. The pages reveal arcane secrets about soul cultivation and an introductory method for becoming a god of the night, all set against the backdrop of the Prince of Yan's rebellion. The temple master, the strongest in the region, was forced to descend the mountain to purify the wandering souls of the war and avert Ain calamity. As a stabbing pain pierces his shoulder, he connects the pieces of the historical puzzle, realizing that the existence of the gods of the night is a secret chapter omitted from mortal history. The narrative takes a macabre turn when the elder brother, missing for days, returns as a reanimated corpse with his heart ripped out, appearing at the terrified disciple's door. With his last breath, the corpse of the elder brother whispers a final, cryptic warning: do not trust the master. Just before the story is interrupted by torn-out pages, an unnatural chill runs through his body, a terror so intense that his instincts scream that he must flee this accursed place without looking back. Hoping to find a weapon against the unknown, he picks up the ancient bronze mirror, its dull surface hiding more secrets than it reveals. He examines it with a scholar's eye, hoping the artifact will reveal some hidden truth about this realm of nightmares. But his eyes widen in horror as he feels an icy presence manifesting behind him, a terror he had not detected before. The mirror, instead of his own reflection, returns the image of a skeletal specter clinging to his shoulder, a parasite from beyond. A stifled scream escapes his throat. Pure panic seizes him as he realizes he has been carrying a ghostly stowaway this whole time. In a desperate act, he strikes his head with a sacred talisman, reciting an improvised prayer in the hope of exorcising the demon. He kneels on the floor, begging forgiveness from the void, an act of penitence as comical as it is desperate in the face of the invisible threat. With a ray of hope, he looks back at the mirror, praying to the Lord Yellow Talisman that its divine power has been sufficient. But his hope shatters when he sees the specter still there, mocking him, and he curses his luck as he realizes the talisman is useless against this type of entity. A deadly cold invades his limbs, and the pain in his shoulder intensifies, as he understands that the creature is draining his life energy while he bitterly regrets his decision to leave the main hall. In his agony, he can almost hear the workers' ghosts giving him a macabre welcome to the Death Club, an honor he would rather decline. Just when his despair reaches its lowest point, the ghostly footsteps, the same ones that pursued him in the courtyard, resound again in the sepulchral silence. He curses his luck, for now he finds himself trapped between a spectral parasite and an invisible entity, problem after problem in this personal hell. With a resolve born of madness, he challenges his tormentors, proclaiming that if they kill him, he will join their ranks and shame them with his ghostly superiority. Crawling toward the window like a spy in enemy territory, he peeks cautiously to identify the owner of the approaching footsteps. What he sees defies all logic. A pair of elegant red dance shoes, Western style, glide across the courtyard grass with an unnatural grace. The crimson heels seem to float above the ground, a sight as beautiful as it is terrifying in the desolation of the cursed temple. The mysterious apparitions continue their ghostly stroll, passing right in front of his hiding place without noticing his presence. He holds his breath, his mind trying to process the incongruity of finding modern dance shoes in a Ming Dynasty temple. He watches from the shadows, a silent observer of a macabre dance, wondering what new level of madness this spiritual realm has in store for him. With the stealth of a frightened mouse, he crouches in the darkness, holding his breath as the ghostly footsteps recede. A trembling sigh escapes his lips, a small relief amid the paralyzing terror that consumes him. With trembling hands, he raises the bronze mirror once more, hoping for a miracle that won't come. The reflection in the mirror returns a grimace of despair. The specter still clings to his shoulder, the pain so intense he feels like he's going to split in two. The vengeful spirit manifests as a purple aura, its weight on him a physical burden that crushes him as he runs desperately toward salvation. Each step is agony, the 1-minute walk turning into an endless marathon under the growing weight of the ghostly parasite. With his last breath, he hurls himself through the door of the main hall, a castaway reaching the shore of salvation. His body gives in to exhaustion and pain, collapsing onto the tiled floor like a marionette whose strings have been cut. Just when he thinks all is lost, the purple aura fades into the air, and an epiphany strikes him. The main hall is a true safe house. The pain in his shoulder begins to fade, a warm sense of relief confirming the sanctity of his refuge, a small oasis in this desert of nightmares. With the relief of a survivor, He mentally replays his dance with death, realizing that if the parasitic spirit and the dancing shoes had attacked him together, his story would have ended right then and there. He covers his face, cold sweat a testament to the terror he has just experienced, thanking the gods for having escaped by a hair from the clutches of hell. Applying the first survival rule of horror games, he bars the door while mentally cataloging the threats: a vengeful spirit, killer shoes, and a banyan tree with very bad intentions. Suddenly, a celestial screen appears before him, triumphantly announcing that he has completed the survival mission and achieved 20% progress in exploring the realm. His eyes open in disbelief, the joy of victory washing over him as he realizes he has passed the first trial of this deadly dungeon. The system displays his rewards: a corpse-repelling talisman, 15% experience, and the unlocking of his inventory, his first loot in this new world. As a final gift, the heavens grant him a 36-hour rest period, starting a countdown to his inevitable return to this hell. His body begins to dissolve into a cascade of light and data, the teleportation process ripping him out of the spiritual realm against his will. With a blinding flash, he materializes back into the familiarity of his world, falling to his knees in shock at having returned from the dead. He looks around, his eyes recognizing the four walls of his room, a mortal sanctuary he never thought he'd see again. Back in the world of the living, he collapses onto his bed, the sweet scent of mortal air a balm for his tormented soul. He frantically searches for the talisman he won, only to discover in a panic that the prize of his victory has vanished from his side. Just as despair threatens to consume him, an inventory screen materializes in his mind, revealing the talisman safe in his first slot. He understands that this ability is instinctive, a function of his new self that does not need to be learned, but simply desired. Seeing his level 0 on the screen, he speculates that he has not yet truly ascended to the rank of God of the Night, his initiation still incomplete. His first impulse is to contact his cousin in the police force, seeking an anchor of normality in this sea of supernatural madness. But the image of the investigator and his veiled threat stops him, as he realizes that an ordinary officer would never believe a story of ghosts and spiritual realms. He knows that if he tries, they'll label him crazy or sleepwalking, his warnings dismissed as the delusions of a fevered mind. With new resolve, he takes the business card of the enigmatic Lee Dongza, deducing that this man and his team are the key to understanding this new world. He dials the number, staking his future on the belief that this special personnel is the only one who can give him the answers he desperately seeks. Investigator Lee, I'm Zhang Yuanxing. He introduces himself with forced calm, only to be met with a casual greeting that sends a chill through him. Wow, you managed to get out of the spiritual realm. His eyes narrow with hawk-like sharpness, the confirmation that this man knew exactly which hell he had been trapped in ringing in his mind. So you really knew. Lee Dongza congratulates him on his ascension to Walker of the spiritual realm, revealing himself as an official colleague in this shadowy world and offering him a crossroads that will define his destiny. He presents two paths: joining the government organization to be cultivated and controlled, or wandering as a solitary cultivator, registered but left to his own devices without the Empire's support. Without a shred of doubt, our hero proclaims his loyalty with a patriotic fervor that would make an eagle weep, vowing to spill his blood for the motherland and its people. The investigator, amused by his enthusiasm, grants him a night's rest and jokingly reminds him that even to die for the organization, one must wait until the office is open. With a nervous smile, he confesses his little deception about the card, a caution that, to his surprise, earns him a compliment from the shrewd veteran. Night wraps the city in its cloak of stars and neon lights. A brief respite before a new chapter of his life begins with the dawn. A new day dawns, the sun's rays filtering through the leaves, heralding his rendezvous with destiny. Our hero emerges from his chrysalis of sleep, hair tousled and his stomach growling, a new soldier ready for his first day. After breakfast, the night was an endless torment, every blink of his eyes an invitation to the recurring nightmare of the specter clinging to his shoulder, leaving him on the brink of collapse. At dawn, he is met with the teasing of his grandmother and aunt, who attribute his zombie-like appearance not to ghostly battles, but to a night of youthful excess. His aunt, with the cunning of an inquisitor, threatens to search his trash, to which he replies with masterful sarcasm, inviting her to look under his bed as well. Ignoring the family comedy, he approaches his grandfather, the clan patriarch and retired police chief, intending to unearth the secrets of the past. He questions him about the legendary Yuling Tunnel incident, reminding him that he himself was part of the original search party, only to be met with a dismissive gesture about that old story. The grandfather claims his memory has faded with time, a convenient excuse that is abruptly interrupted by the grandmother's scolding about his terrible oral hygiene. However, Grandma, whose mind is a repository of old stories, remembers a crucial detail that Grandpa conveniently forgot. The sole survivor of the tragedy disappeared again shortly after being found. Grandma accuses him of going senile, reminding him that he was the one who told her the story, while Grandpa entrenches himself behind the wall of science, dismissing it all as mere gossip. A chill runs through our hero as he connects the dots. The survivor must have been dragged back to the spiritual realm after his 36-hour reprieve, only to perish on his second attempt. As he brushes his teeth, a cold resolve seizes him. Faced with a second mission carrying such a terrifying mortality rate, his only trump card is to trust in the power of the government. After a quick morning ritual that barely washed away the taste of nightmares, the toothbrush was abandoned in his cup, a silent witness to the beginning of a momentous day. With breakfast still in his mouth and the urgency of a man with an appointment with destiny, he ignored his grandparents' protests, for mortal time no longer dictated his schedule. From the threshold, his grandfather watched him depart with a silent, penetrating gaze, a mix of pride and a worry that only old patriarchs understand. Outside, he did not expect a heavenly carriage, but its modern equivalent, a limousine so long and opulent it seemed forged for the emperors of the new era. Peering out from behind a corner like a novice exploring a new dungeon, he regarded the vehicle with a mixture of awe and suspicion. The door opened like the jaws of a steel beast, and a voice from inside invited him in, a simple command that marked his entry into a world of power and secrets. With the resolve of a warrior walking onto the battlefield, he moved toward the limousine, each step a farewell to his old, mundane life. Inside the luxurious interior, investigator Lee Dongza, reclining like a decadent emperor, offered him a drink, to which our hero, with the innocence of a mortal, replied with a simple request, Coca-Cola. A half-smile appeared on the veteran's face, and he told him with amused calm that for such plebeian delicacies, he'd have to stop by the supermarket later. A purely practical thought crossed the new recruit's mind, wondering whether his new and mysterious organization would have a reimbursement policy for sugary drinks. With a martini glass in hand, the enigmatic Lee Dongza begins the recruitment ritual, promising paperwork, basic training, and, first, a formal introduction. He presents himself not as a mere mortal, but as Lee Dongza, a level 3 spiritual realm walker, squad leader of the Five Elements Alliance, and a veteran scout. With a smile that hides 1,000 battles, he welcomes him to the club, declaring that from this moment on they are colleagues in a secret war the world knows nothing about. As the limousine glides through the city, the lesson begins. The spiritual realm is a force that defies science, an enigma that even they, its guardians, do not fully understand. He explains that this realm exists within reality itself, a hidden plane that only the chosen can access, and the method of selection is the will of destiny. The method, as his young recruit suspects, is through that very black card that dragged him into this world of madness. It is known as the character card, a key that opens a trial mission and, upon passing it, grants a class, abilities, and a new purpose. The distribution method is a cosmic joke. The cards can appear on your body, be found in the street, or even be the prize for clicking a suspicious link online. He warns him that the trial is only the beginning of the cultivator's path, a road of constant missions to grow stronger. Not all of them are death sentences. Some are even fun. Using himself as a grim example, he admits that in 2 years he has only dared enter a solo realm 3 times, almost dying in the attempt. For superpowers, young colleague, always demand a price in blood. Sounds like a dungeon from a video game. Our hero murmurs, his gamer mind absorbing the new and terrifying reality with surprising ease. A smile of approval appears on his mentor's face, who praises his quick grasp, a valuable trait in a world where a single second of doubt can mean death. The veteran continues his lesson, explaining that while multiplayer dungeons are a chaos of classes and abilities, solo ones, with the highest mortality rate, are a tailor-made hell. And why are they the deadliest? Our novice asks, his gamer curiosity momentarily overcoming his instinct for self-preservation. The answer is as logical as it is terrifying. While in a group, classes complement one another, when alone the realm exploits your class's abilities to craft a personalized, brutal trial. Like a veteran showing off his scars, Lee Dongza recounts his own ordeals, solving cases as a deadly detective, being hunted by villains in the jungle, and surviving in the harshest wilderness. A chilling epiphany runs through our hero as he realizes his own fate. Like a god of the night, his solitary dungeons will become a festival of supernatural horrors drawn from his worst nightmares. With his heart clenched, he dares to ask about his sworn brother, only to receive the cold, devastating official verdict. Lei Yibing, is already dead. The logic of his death is as relentless as the spiritual realm itself. A normal dungeon lasts at most 2 days, but his friend has been missing for 4. Clinging to a last thread of hope, he desperately asks about the higher stages, praying that his brother has ascended to a level where time flows differently. With an enigmatic calm, his mentor admits that the higher realms are mysterious, but the trials they contain are undoubtedly far longer and more arduous. Clinging to the hope that his brother has reached a higher level, he realizes that his only option to survive and uncover the truth is to join an official organization. Before revealing the faction's secrets to him, Li Dongzi stops him with a question that carries more weight than any combat skill. What is your morality value? Our hero, still a novice in this cosmic game, consults his invisible status panel and replies hesitantly, 60. The starting value? With the solemnity of a judge handing down a sentence, his guide reveals the deadliest trap. If his morality falls below 60, the system will mark him as a target, broadcasting his location to all the city's walkers so they can eliminate. A cold sweat runs down the back of his neck as he grasps the terrible truth. He is condemned to a life of enforced righteousness. Desperate, his mind flies to his most treasured pastimes, wondering whether his handiwork and his vast collection of study material count as moral depravity. A cry of pure agony rips through the air, convinced that his life, as he knew it, has ended in an abyss of enforced sanctity. Li Dongzi's laugh bursts out in the luxurious limousine, a storm of joy at the innocence and all too earthly priorities of his new, promising recruit. Now calmer, the veteran clarifies that only serious crimes affect the score. His private vices are safe from divine judgment, and, most importantly, lost morality can be recovered. Sipping his martini with predatory elegance, his mentor reminds him with a smile that, from now on, he must be a good boy. Our hero's mind sinks into philosophical musings, questioning why a supernatural phenomenon like the spiritual realm would bother imposing a human order. With an ironic smile, he concludes that to maintain his score, he'll have to dedicate himself to the noble task of helping more elderly women cross the street. His mentor doesn't offer him an answer to the riddle of morality, leading him to suspect that not even the high command fully understands the rules of this cosmic game. The limousine stops, marking the end of the car ride and the beginning of his true initiation into the secrets of the spiritual realm. Stepping out of the vehicle, with a cheekiness that betrays his youthful nature, he asks whether sponsoring young damsels in distress counts as a violation of the law. As they walk toward headquarters, Li Dongzi reveals a terrible truth. The fastest way to increase one's morality is through charity, a loophole that evil organizations exploit mercilessly. He lays bare the supreme irony of the system. With enough money, one can buy absolution for their sins, even murder, a truth as valid in the mortal world as in the spiritual. Before entering the elevator, he reveals one last golden rule. War between walkers of the spiritual realm doesn't affect morality, a license to kill that will define future battles. Finally, he presents the power structure of his new world, the Five Elements Alliance, made up of 5 factions that represent the 5 elemental classes. With the innocence of a lamb asking why the wolf has such big teeth, our hero questions why official organizations are full of demons and monsters. His mentor reveals that the Alliance is a fragile peace treaty barely 20 years old, forged between clans that used to massacre one another because of their conflicting natures. He begins his rant against the forest demons of the Society of the 100 Flowers, a group of environmentalists so extreme they'd make a tree cry, and whom he longs to kick with his leather shoes. Then he pours his venom on the Palace of the Water God and its ridiculous bacterial cultivation, and on the Central Tribunal with its real estate nonsense. With a gleam of fanaticism in his eyes, he declares that only the explorers of the White Tiger Corps, wise and decisive, are the perfect class, a statement that would likely spark a civil war. He explains the game's meta to him. The Red Fire Gang are impulsive berserkers, the Palace of the Water God are aquatic mages, the Society of the 100 Flowers are priests and summoners, and the people of the Central Tribunal are thick-skinned tanks. With a mischievous smile, our hero reduces all his mentor's mystique to a simple gamer's question. So you explorers are the 75 gold wards in the game. A vein nearly bursts on Li Dongzi's forehead, wrapped in an aura of murderous fire. He warns him that if he were a fire master, he would already have split his head with a club. Just as the tension reaches a boiling point, the heavenly chime of the elevator arriving at their floor interrupts the etiquette lesson. Now calmer, his mentor admits with a touch of envy that, while explorers are a perfect class, among the orthodox classes the god of the night is universally recognized as the strongest. Curiosity consumes him, and, with the boldness of a novice, he asks his mentor about the legendary power of the god of the night class. As they walk, Li Dongza reveals to him the arcane arsenal of the gods of the night: natural assassins, soul communicators, corpse refiners, and spirit masters. But the lesson takes on a tinge of melancholy when he explains that these warriors are as rare as a phoenix's tears, especially in Shanghai, where the Tai sect hoards them like a dragon its treasure. A sigh escapes his lips, a silent lament for not having such a powerful weapon in his own arsenal. Suddenly, a flash of revelation crosses his face as he realizes a crucial detail he'd overlooked about his recruit. He turns abruptly and, with the hope of a gambler staking his last chip, asks Zhang Yuanqing what his class is. With a mischievous smile and newfound confidence, our hero replies casually, "I'm a god of the night." I think. Time seems to stop. The veteran of 1,000 battles stands frozen, his mind trying to process the bombshell that has just dropped. An electrically charged silence fills the room, a moment suspended between disbelief and euphoria. The leader's composure shatters, and, with the excitement of a treasure hunter who has found El Dorado, he grabs his recruit, his voice a thunder of astonishment. "Are you a night wanderer?" Overcome by a joy bordering on madness, the veteran leader embraces his new recruit, his cry of triumph ringing like that of a miner who has struck a vein of pure gold. He struts like a peacock, explaining that gods of the night are such coveted treasures that rival factions would tear out each other's throats to have one in their ranks. His mind flies to legends of espionage and seduction, where beautiful maidens use their charms to rob these warriors, celebrating their incredible luck at having stumbled upon one by chance. Recovering a shred of professionalism, he asks for his alias in the spiritual realm, only to receive an answer that would make the heavens tremble. Primordial Celestial Lord. A shadow darker than the abyss crosses Li Dongza's face, his expression a clear sign that the chosen name is so pretentious it borders on blasphemy. With a forced laugh that sounds like the creaking of bones, she congratulates him on his good name, while our hero thinks her performance is less convincing than that of a third-rate actor. Wasting no time, he begins negotiating his contract, offering him a monthly salary of 20,000, plus bonuses, a wage fit for an elite mercenary. Our hero's eyes turn into dollar signs, and with the fervor of a worshipper before his god, he accepts the offer, calling him boss, with an almost sacred enthusiasm. As he leads him through an office full of hard-working mortals, he explains that all this staff exists for the sole purpose of serving the walkers, as personal assistants to the demigods. Finally, he escorts him to his private office, the threshold of his new sanctuary and the true beginning of his career as a soldier of the supernatural. Inside his new boss's office, he is ordered to sit while the contract that will seal his fate is printed, marking the formal start of his new life. While he waits, the tension is broken by the arrival of a female figure, her presence filling the room with an aura of danger and seduction. Leaning in the doorframe, the newcomer, Guanya, a level 2 scout, offers him her help with a smile that promises as much trouble as pleasure. The memory of their first encounter, when she confiscated his phone and discovered his self-study material, makes his face flush, a humiliation that still smolders. Li Dongza, seized by sudden urgency, hands the contract to Guanya, delegating the task of contacting his superiors, clearly euphoric over his new discovery. With a honeyed voice and a mischievous look, she greets him, congratulating him on passing the test, and teasing him about his well-known fondness for mature women. Before leaving, the leader warns his subordinate not to say weird things in front of the young student, a paternal attempt to protect an innocence that has already been corrupted. She ignores him and, drawing so close that he blushes to his ears, whispers that he surely wants to know more about the trial realms, an offer his boss enthusiastically approves of. As he watches his boss walk away, floating with happiness, he wonders what has gotten into him to make him walk as if he were on cloud 9. Guanya, now in professional mode, sits beside him and orders him to stop daydreaming and start filling out the form, officially beginning his initiation into the bureaucracy of the supernatural. Reclining with the elegance of a panther, Guanya asks him if his boss has already delivered the welcome sermon. As he plunges into the abyss of bureaucracy, she informs him that his mortal identity will be erased, replaced by a new organization ID card and a novice pass. His innocent question of why is answered with a reminder that the spiritual realm itself forbade him from using his real name, a fundamental rule that he, in his ignorance, questions. With the simplicity of a child, he asks if there's a problem, to which she replies by pointing at him, her gesture a promise of a painful lesson to come. She reveals the duality of his new world, an eternal war between the orthodox professions, champions of the law, and the malignant professions, heralds of chaos. She explains that practitioners of evil are bloodthirsty beasts whose sole obsession is hunting the righteous, making a secret identity one's most vital armor. The revelation hits him, The names of his new guardians are as fake as a wooden coin, to which she responds with an enigmatic smile, inviting him to play a guessing game. With the pride of an alpha predator, she declares that they are the hunters in this jungle of souls, and he, with the cunning of a courtier, flatters her as a huntress without equal. Her proximity invades his personal space, and in a seductive voice, she asks how many hearts he has conquered with his honeyed tongue, to which he, blushing, confesses that he's single. She expresses her surprise, saying that the immaculate cleanliness of her trash can make her suspect a girlfriend, leaving him to wonder about the strange fetish she and her aunt seem to share for trash bins. With a mischievous smile, she offers to buy him a girlfriend online, an offer as tempting as it is dangerous. He, with a confidence that disarms her, rejects the offer, declaring his preference for real girlfriends, a response that makes her burst into genuine laughter. Not missing a beat, he fires back with a boldness that stops her laughter cold. I also like Sister Guanya. Her face turns serious, surprise replacing amusement, as her predatory gaze appraises him with a new intensity. She declares her disbelief at his single status, to which he responds with an oath so dramatic that he invokes the heavens and the cars as witnesses to his honesty. Returning to serious matters, she explains the local power structure to him, reminding him that his loyalty now belongs to the White Tiger Guard, a fact he accepts without hesitation. With the fervor of a new convert, he declares his loyalty not to the faction but to her, promising to follow her to the ends of time. Pleased by his enthusiasm, she takes his form, confessing her weakness for energetic young men as she prepares to review his information. As she reads, she mocks his divinely pretentious alias, Primordial Celestial Lord, asking him if he's not afraid of being beaten in the street for such arrogance. Her voice trails off as her eyes land on the class section, the word night, floating in the air like the harbinger of a shocking revelation. Her hunter's eyes narrow, a spark of disbelief igniting as she reads the word that could change everything. On the paper, written in the ink of fate, two words resonate in her mind. Night Wonder. A silence heavier than gold fills the room, each second stretching into an eternity as she processes the magnitude of the revelation. Finally, she looks up, her eyes wide as saucers with astonishment, her voice a whisper heavy with disbelief. Are you a night wanderer? He, with the confidence of a king reclaiming his throne and a smile that could disarm a demon, raises his thumb and declares triumphantly, I am. The section head's euphoria was uncontrollable, celebrating with a shout of victory at having found his own god of the night for the White Tiger Corps, a treasure so rare it justified such a fit of madness. With a delicate touch to his chin, she drew him closer, savoring the shy, flushed reaction of the young recruit, whose nervousness was palpable beneath her predatory gaze. She warned him with a seductive yet threatening smile that, now that he was her team's prize god of the night, he was forbidden to be seduced by women from other factions, or he would face dire consequences. With an almost comical fervor, he swore eternal loyalty, declaring that he would belong to Sister Guanya in life and be her ghost in death. A submission so endearing, she couldn't help finding it charming. Her expression turned serious as she reviewed the form, for an anomaly leapt out. His level was 0, unheard of for someone who had just passed the test mission. A cold sweat ran down her temple as a bad premonition washed over her. She couldn't fathom how such an irregularity could occur in the spiritual realm system. Her eyes landed on the name of the test mission, a revelation that promised to explain the mystery. Yuling Tunnel. The name rang in her mind like thunder. One of the 10 great urban legends, a deadly dungeon notorious for its near-absolute mortality rate. Shock seized her. She couldn't believe that the novice had not only been hurled into that hell, but had somehow managed to come out alive. Leaning toward him with desperate urgency, she asked whether his trial realm had really been the Yuling Tunnel, while the young man, unaware of the terror that name inspired, only noticed his superior's strange, somber expression. With a cold bead of sweat sliding down his temple, he asked with a hint of hope whether, since it was an instance, there would be a guide for his trial mission, only to be met with a deep, ominous sigh. He spun around sharply, bewildered by the reaction, only to see a bespectacled clerk looking at him with an expression of deep pity, while Sister Guanya continued reading his report with a frown. The clerk let out another sigh full of compassion, a sound that made the young hero's patience snap. He shouted desperately for him to stop sighing and give him an explanation. Panic seized him as he grasped the terrible truth. He was being pitted. His luck was so catastrophic he felt as if he'd opened the deadliest surprise box in the universe. And in a fit of terror, he decided to go find the section chief. As Guanya walked away murmuring about the rookie's terrible luck, he begged her to stop scaring him, just as she called her colleague, Brother Wang Tai, to come over to her desk. Trying to analyze the situation with the cool mind of a strategist, He explained to Wang Tai that he had already deduced the existence of a safe house, to which the clerk revealed that it is the duty of every official walker to create guides for the realms they visit in exchange for rewards. Wang Tai, standing beside a laptop, told him in a somber tone that the Yuling Tunnel was a special case and that it would be better if he saw the information for himself. On the laptop screen, a document opened, its title revealing a compilation of every trial realm known to the gods of the night in the Songhai region. As he read the descriptions of the C-, B-, and A-ranked missions, a false sense of security washed over him. For the strategies for surviving the ruins of Wang Village or the Lingang Reservoir seemed absurdly simple. However, his sharp analytical mind detected a deadly inconsistency. While the most difficult trials listed were ranked A, the Yuling Tunnel was classified as S, despite the fact that the difficulty he had experienced seemed much lower, a peculiarity that chilled his blood. With a click of the mouse, his fingers opened the file that contained the truth about the infamous dungeon. The screen revealed the terrible history of the Yuling Tunnel. Of 12 souls who entered, only one returned, only to die on his second attempt, a never-ending cycle of death. In red letters, the final warning shone like blood, declaring that no walker in recorded history had ever managed to conquer that accursed spirit realm. Cold sweat ran down the back of his neck as the horrible epiphany struck him like a hammer. In other words, no one, absolutely no one, had ever survived. Far from the office and the terrible revelation, in a luxurious suite with a view of the sky, a completely different power play was unfolding. Section Chief Li Dongza held his wine glass, the crimson liquid swirling slowly as he savored the sweet nectar of his recent victory. A sigh of pure satisfaction escaped his lips, the smoke from his cigar rising in spirals as he contemplated the bright future he had just secured. The newly appointed centurion desperately needed to consolidate his power, and the arrival of a night god with an impeccable record was not a coincidence, but a gift from fate. With pride, he informed his superior by phone that he had recruited a night wanderer for the White Tiger Corps, a feat that would secure him great merit and an even brighter future. But his celebration was abruptly interrupted by Guan Yu's sudden entrance. Her panicked cry, "Section Chief, this is terrible," made his face register surprise and alarm. With forced calm, the section chief scolded her for her lack of manners. Just before she dropped the bomb, Zhang Yuanqing's trial realm was the Yuling Tunnel. The wine he had been savoring was expelled in a spray of surprise, the revelation shattering his composure in an instant. He sprang to his feet, panic etched on his face as the name of the deadly dungeon echoed in his mind like a death sentence. Dragging Guan Yu with him, he lamented his own misfortune, comparing the young recruit to a foolish child who only knows how to play in the mud and had ruined his plans. In the other room, the young hero was plunged into deep despair, a shadow of doom looming over him. With a trembling voice and a pale face, he asked his chief if there was any possibility that he could be saved from his impending fate. The section chief, now calmer but bearing an air of defeat, simply bowed his head, his silence more eloquent than any words. He explained gravely that the trial mission is the first and most crucial solo challenge for every walker, and for that very reason the most problematic. With a hand on the young man's shoulder, he reminded him of the harsh truth. In a solo instance, no one can help him, for it is the price he must pay to obtain his supernatural powers. Finally, he offered one last ray of hope, promising to search the high-level databases and ordering that he record every detail of his experience, because otherwise no one could save him. The section chief ordered him to go home and wait for news, entrusting Guan Yu with the task of taking him, while the young man gratefully accepted the fleeting hope. The transition from the interior of the office faded into a sterile white, marking the end of her first and perhaps last visit to headquarters. They left the building into the afternoon sun, his solitary figure following the veteran as she departed the team's headquarters. With bitter resignation, he told her that it seemed her words would come true and that, after all, he would become her ghost. She replied with a playful smile, assuring him not to worry, saying he wouldn't make her a widow, before ordering him into the car. His face contorted in a grimace of embarrassment and frustration at her joke, a moment of levity amid the shadow of death that hung over him. Obediently, he slid into the vehicle, the car's dark interior a harbinger of the uncertain future that awaited him. With a surprisingly tender gesture, she stroked his hair, admitting that while the boss would do everything possible to help him, she could only wish him good luck. After a brief exchange of farewells, her expression hardened, her blue eyes shining with a steely resolve in the face of the imminent life-or-death trial. The car dropped him off in front of his apartment building, the familiarity of home a stark contrast to the nightmare world he would soon have to return to. Back at the office, the golden light of sunset filtered into the cubicle where Guan Yu, and her colleague Wang Tai continued their work. Seated at her meticulously decorated desk, Guanya attentively jotted down her observations on a small scrap of paper. The improvised psychological profile described him as intriguing, resentful, and with a strong libido, adding a warning about his high likelihood of being seduced by female enemy agents. She tore the note from her notepad with the precision of a spy filing a crucial report. She opened Team 2's personnel file and pasted her unofficial assessment next to the profile of the new, troublesome recruit. Leaning back in her chair with predatory elegance, she asked Wang Tai if he thought the boy had any remote chance of surviving. Without taking his eyes off his screen, he replied pessimistically that even if the Tai sect had detailed information, it would probably be useless. He continued his analysis, reasoning that if the realm were conquerable, the sect would already have sent its own night gods to claim the juicy rewards of an S-rank mission. She reflected on the immense value of the items but concluded that, without precise knowledge of the tunnel's dangers, equipping it would be a shot in the dark. With a gesture of frustration, she reached the grim conclusion that the most likely outcome of such an undertaking would be the loss of both the man and the precious items. The screen bled a bloody red, illustrating the only two brutal ways to obtain ownerless items: searching for them in a spiritual realm or murdering another walker in the real world for their loot. She dismissed both options as unfeasible, for if the bearer dies inside a realm, the items are reclaimed by the realm itself, resulting in a colossal loss. Suddenly, Wang Tai's hand froze over the keyboard, the sound of his typing abruptly ceasing with a silent command. Adjusting his glasses, he pointed out the terrible coincidence that the Qingming Festival, the annual date when the Yuling Tunnel opens, had just passed, dooming the newcomer's prospects to catastrophe. In the solitude of his opulent office, Section Chief Li Dong's silhouette was cut against the window, the only sound the rapid tapping of his fingers on his phone. With absolute concentration and a bead of sweat at his temple, he drafted a message that could decide the fate of his precious, newly discovered treasure. The report for Centurion Fu detailed the terrible truth. The trial realm of the new night god was the Yuling Tunnel, an anomalous two-stage instance that claimed the lives of a construction crew last century. In his message, he admitted his initial mistake born of emotion, begging the Centurion to use his influence to consult the Tai sect's database, for the White Tiger Corps does not abandon its comrades. A spark of hope shone in his eyes as he held the phone, a whisper escaping his lips. "I hope that we can keep this night god." With a decisive movement of his thumb, he sent the message, a digital prayer invoking his faction's core principle to save the young man from almost certain death. He waited in the apartment hallway, the elevator's rhythmic drip marking the slow passage of time as he returned to the normalcy of the mortal world. With a weariness that went beyond the physical, he opened the door to his home, announcing his return to his grandmother in a barely audible voice. His grandmother, in the middle of her chores, told him that his cousin was waiting in the dining room, to which he responded with a simple murmured assent. She, with the keen perception of a matriarch, noticed his absent spirit and asked him how he was, but he simply dismissed her concern with an empty assurance that he was fine. Upon entering the dining room, he greeted his cousin, whose presence was an anchor to the mundane life he felt was slipping from his grasp. His cousin, with a calmness that contrasted with his own inner agitation, asked if he had been looking for him the night before, a question that hung in the air loaded with implications. He tried to evade the conversation, declaring that yesterday's problem was already resolved, but his cousin, with the insight of an officer, instantly deduced that everything revolved around the Lei Yibing case. His cousin confirmed the seriousness of the situation, admitting his own helplessness in the face of such an unusual case, while a small, mischievous spiritual figure mocked his despair. Suddenly, a blue-haired young woman appeared brimming with joy, offering his cousin an anti-aging gift that, she said, her grandmother had insisted she buy. But the cousin, with a somber expression and an authority that belied his age, rejected the gift with a cutting phrase. "Aunt, I don't need this." The aunt's cry of "brat" rang through the room, leaving both cousins frozen in a cold sweat of shared shock. The matriarch unleashed her fury on her grandson, scolding him for having the face of a 40-year-old and threatening to iron his wrinkles out with a clothes iron. With her fist clenched, she lamented having failed to level up her father, determined to shape him properly as she recalled Uncle Wang's visit the previous year. The memory carried them back to the day Uncle Wang nearly fainted at the sight of him, forcing grandfather to clarify that the strange being was, in fact, his grandson. The guest could only offer a strained compliment about his unique appearance, a laughable attempt to hide his astonishment at the young man's prematurely aged looks. Fed up, the cousin cut off the scolding, using the excuse of an overwhelming missing persons case to escape the family scrutiny. The mention of the case piqued the hero's interest, his keen blue eyes fixed on his cousin as he asked about the current situation. His cousin revealed a chilling mystery. 2 people had disappeared in the Yuling tunnel, captured by the exterior cameras but completely invisible to the interior cameras. With a severe look, he warned them not to spread the information, reminding them that he had signed a non-disclosure agreement. The aunt immediately wondered whether the tunnel was haunted again, lamenting its sinister reputation, while the cousin fell silent, the weight of his secret investigation palpable in the air. As his aunt pleaded for juicier details, the young hero's mind wandered, wondering whether the 2 vanished souls might have accidentally entered the temple of the mountain god, just as had happened to him. With a somber expression, he contemplated the possibility that those 2 poor souls were facing the same mortal trial as he was, surviving 3 hours in a personal hell. A twisted sense of consolation washed over him at not being the only one suffering, a thought he immediately apologized for with a nervous laugh. The revelation that the spiritual realms had always existed led him into deep reflection, causing him to wonder whether the inexplicable annual disappearances were actually abductions to these hidden planes. Far from the bustle of the city, in the serenity of the capital city, a majestic traditional-style residence stood as a bastion of ancestral power. Sunbeams filtered through the dense foliage, bathing the tranquil courtyard in an almost divine light. A wrinkled yet steady hand held a yellow fan, a simple gesture that denoted a life of wisdom and contained power. An elderly man with a white mustache rocked gently in his chair, enjoying a nap under the shade of a tree, while a young subordinate waited respectfully at his side. "Elder son," the young man said reverently, "the youth from the Fu family has sent you an email." The subordinate reported that Fu Qingyang's subordinate in Shanghai had recruited a night god whose trial was the Yuling tunnel, and that he was now humbly requesting the Grandmaster's files and counsel. The elder stopped his fan with a sharp movement, the snap breaking the silence of the serene courtyard. He explained that the opening of the Yuling tunnel had coincided with the recently passed Qingming festival, lamenting the fate of the unfortunate souls who would receive a character card from a god of the night at that time. He granted access to the archives, revealing that the tunnel was an S-rank instance that had become corrupted, evolving into something far beyond a mere trial for novices. His counsel, delivered with chilling intent, was simple and brutal: abandon that god of the night to its fate. The subordinate nodded with a grim smile, accepting the logic of not investing in someone whose death was an absolute certainty. The narration noted that, while an S-rank trial realm was already the pinnacle of difficulty for a novice, the Yuling tunnel was an even stranger and deadlier anomaly. To unravel its secrets and claim its valuable treasures, the Tai sect had stationed 2 level 1 gods of the night in Shanghai. This was because these S-rank trials sometimes opened to level 1 walkers, offering them a challenge of an entirely different caliber. After months of bitter waiting, the 2 warriors finally received their mission, venturing into the jaws of darkness. The outcome was a tragedy. One perished without a trace, while the other, despite miraculously completing the first task, was annihilated the moment he began the second, losing both his life and the items he carried. The elder, reclining with a resigned smile, revealed that since that tragedy the Tai sect's Council of Elders had reevaluated the Yuling tunnel and completely abandoned the idea of conquering it. He added with a sigh that if someone were to finally clear the tunnel and obtain the information it concealed, it would resolve an obsession that had tormented his sect for generations. With a look hardened by power, he issued a new order. In a few days the sect master would summon all the gods of the night to the capital for an important announcement, instructing his subordinate to prepare. Holding his fan with silent purpose, the elder dismissed his subordinate with a single gesture, the sunlight framing his figure as the young man withdrew. The subordinate's voice rang with obedience across the clear sky. "Yes, elder son," a promise that faded into the air, sealing the fate of many. Back alone in his room, the young hero lay awake in his bed, the moonlight and his computer monitor casting long shadows as his mind raced 1,000 miles an hour. With his eyes closed, not to sleep but to concentrate, he reviewed every detail of his deadly trial, looking for a pattern in the chaos, a weakness in the nightmare. The memory of his aunt's words echoed in his mind, her defense of horror games as a test of mindset that required studying the enemy's specific patterns. She had explained that to win, one had to explore the character's inner world, a revelation that now took on a completely new and literal meaning. Sitting in the darkness, an epiphany struck him. If the spiritual realm was like a game, then it must have rules, and if he could decipher the patterns of the goddess, the red shoes, and the dead miner, he could conquer it even without power. The insistent buzz of his phone broke the silence of the night, Guanya's name lighting up the screen like an omen of fate. With an expression of cold determination, His blue eyes narrowed as he accepted the call, preparing for the news that would define his future. Guanya's voice informed him that the section chief had obtained more detailed information, a trove of knowledge already waiting in his inbox. With renewed confidence, he asked him to thank the chief on his behalf, promising a celebratory meal if he managed to defy death and complete the mission. His inbox confirmed the arrival of the mail, a single new message that held the key to his survival or his doom. On the other end of the line, reclining with a lazy elegance, she spoke his name with a mixture of concern and a hint of hope. As his eyes scanned the dense text of the report, one detail caught his attention, prompting a murmur of intrigue. With a soft voice that was at once a promise and a challenge, she assured him she would be waiting for that meal. With steel in his voice, he accepted the challenge. Yes, Sister Guanya, wait for me. A promise sealed with a single word, agreed. He hung up, leaving the phone on the desk. The silence was now charged not with despair, but with the tension of a strategist about to start the most important game of his life. Far away, Guanya sighed in her bed, questioning the usefulness of any information the Tai sect might provide. With a single click, the young hero downloaded the attachment, opening the document that contained the secrets of his impending nightmare. The report confirmed his worst fears. The Yuling Tunnel was a deadly S-rank instance with the same missions as his initial trial. He discovered that the true setting was not the tunnel, but an ancient temple dedicated to the Sandow Mountain goddess from the Ming dynasty. The file speculated that the temple's deity was a night goddess of such unimaginably high rank that the title itself fell short. The text questioned her historical existence, suggesting that the goddess might be a creation of the spirit realm itself to torment its victims. A predecessor's chronicle revealed that after reading some notes, he was stalked by a resentful spirit that drains life energy, a creature protected by the realm itself. The only salvation was a powerful candle in the main hall, a safe haven that repelled the spirit for 25 minutes. But the candle had a terrible price. Its light eliminated fear, a fatal trait in a realm where terror is an instinct for survival. He realized that the refuge was a double-edged sword, and the candle a game mechanism designed to force him forward into danger. After half an hour in the main hall, the predecessor heard a cry for help from the rear courtyard, mixed with blood-curdling roars, and decided to investigate. The young hero confirmed that the main hall was a safe refuge, surprised that the source of protection was the candle and not the beautiful mountain goddess. He recalled that the cry for help came from a great banyan tree, although he didn't hear the roars, confirming that the east courtyard was a terrifying place. The warning about the dangerous banyan tree echoed in his mind, a simple but ominous command. Don't look back. Don't look back. The predecessor's report continued, revealing that the banyan tree seemed conscious and was pleading for help, but his investigation was interrupted by a pair of red dancing shoes that invited him to a deadly duel. Even an experienced dancer couldn't memorize the complex, chaotic steps. The predecessor failed, and the red dancing shoes began hunting him mercilessly. He managed to escape back to the main hall, finally understanding that the shoes were a rule-based object, a revelation that explained why even a night god equipped like Qianshou had perished in that hell. He still didn't know the reason for the temple's decay, but he remained hopeful of completing the second main mission and bringing the truth back to the organization. With his investigation concluded for the moment, his mouse cursor slid over the power button, ending his strategic analysis session. Leaning back in his chair, he mentally cataloged the threats: the shoulder spirit, the banyan tree with its mysterious "don't look back" rule, and the red dancing shoes, a high-level rule-based object. He arrived at the grim conclusion that the legendary workers had likely been trampled to death by the red dancing shoes, their bodies mercilessly destroyed. He reflected that, although his uncle's training had taught him to dance, if a level, one night god had failed, his chances as a novice were nil. However, a spark of youthful arrogance shone across his face as an epiphany began to form in his mind. A flash of understanding lit his blue eyes, the key piece of the puzzle finally clicking into place. A manic laugh erupted in the room when he realized that his predecessor's failure wasn't due to a lack of skill, but to memory, a weakness that his own cerebral overload turned into his greatest strength. Meanwhile, far from his revelation, steam rose lazily in a bath filled with deceptive calm. Guanyu relaxed in a bubble bath, a rare moment of peace in his dangerous life as a spirit realm walker. Tranquility shattered when his phone vibrated, Zhang Yuanqing's name flashing on the screen like a harbinger of imminent trouble. With a sigh, he answered the call, his sleepy voice asking if he had finally finished reading the file that would determine his fate. He confirmed that he had finished, but his voice, now tinged with cold confidence, asked a crucial question that would change everything. What is a rule-based object? From the comfort of her bathroom, she explained to him that objects from the spiritual realm were divided into three categories: cost-based, rule-based, and a third type, to which his rank did not grant access. She revealed that rule-based objects, though more troublesome and rare, could be defeated not by an organizational secret, but by deciphering and breaking their pattern. She explained that the Red Shoes' invitation to dance was likely their rule, and that fulfilling it successfully offered a small chance of acquiring them if the right conditions were met. Dismissing the idea of acquiring such a rare object, he changed the subject with a crucial question: whether medicine could be introduced into the spiritual realm. She confirmed that medicine was an exception to the rule prohibiting the carrying of real-world objects, but that it had to be ingested, to which he cleverly asked whether holding it in his mouth would suffice. Since she couldn't give him a definitive answer, he decided he'd have to try it himself, ending the question session with a thank you. With a seductive smile and a playful goodbye, she reminded him that today was a lucky day for Scorpios, one last omen before the battle. A vortex of energy materialized in his mind. The 5-minute countdown for his return to hell had officially begun. On the wooden table, his only salvation lay in the form of small blue pills, the secret weapon he hoped to use to circumvent the kingdom's rules. With the resolve of a warrior, he adjusted the collar of his outfit, his figure now hardened and ready to face the deadly trial that awaited him. The final countdown began, and with a click, he secured the door of his mortal sanctuary, preparing for the imminent transition. Holding the blue pills in his mouth, a plan as ingenious as it was desperate, he wondered whether his ruse to circumvent the kingdom's rules would succeed. The system interface materialized before him, activating the map of the Yuling Tunnel and reminding him of his 20% progress in exploring that hell. With a final flash of data, the system wished Yuanshi Tianzuan good luck, a digital benediction before sending him back into the maw of the abyss. His body was wrapped in a cascade of purple energy, the violent teleportation process shaking him as he clung to the pills in his mouth. He materialized again on the tiled floor of the temple's main hall, data particles recomposing his form in the heart of his precarious refuge. With the pills still in his mouth and a steely look, he felt the unmistakable presence of the resentful spirit, whispering to himself, "It's coming." Just as the spirit's unnatural cold began to invade him, he spat the pills into the palm of his hand with a choked cry. A triumphant smile spread across his face as he confirmed that his method had worked, proclaiming his own brilliance and anticipating that the pills would make his duel with the Red Shoes easier. With the confidence of a master strategist who had just validated his boldest move, he slipped one of the pills into his mouth, ready for the next act of his deadly performance. Peering into the perpetual night, he realized that this spiritual realm seemed plunged into eternal darkness. If he treated this spiritual realm like a game, he needed to understand its mechanics to survive. He approached the candle, reasoning that, as in a video game, interacting with objects in the environment would reveal their hidden information. Upon touching it, a system window appeared, revealing that the inextinguishable candle was a fuel-type item with exorcism and purification effects, information he hadn't dared to seek on his first incursion. He understood that the candle was a cost-type object, whose price was the loss of fear, deciding for now to remain in the safety of the main hall to plan his exploration of the East Courtyard. A strict rule was imposed. His exploration time could not exceed 15 minutes, for beyond that limit the resentful spirit would settle on his shoulder and sentence him to certain death. He acknowledged that the blue pill was his trump card against the Red Shoes, but he knew his clever plan was not foolproof. Despite all the information he had gathered, a wave of hesitation washed over him, the magnitude of the danger weighing on him. His brave resolve crumbled into childish fear, a silent scream echoing in his mind. "I don't want to go out." Peering from the threshold with renewed determination, he reminded himself that in this game it was far too easy to die, deciding to head straight for the East Yard. He took a deep breath, accepting the harsh reality that hiding indefinitely in the main hall would only lead him to a slow death by starvation. With a resolve forged in desperation, he descended the sanctuary steps, deciding that, whether to live or die, he could only fight for it. The yard, overgrown with weeds and bathed in the pale starlight, greeted him with a sepulchral silence that promised both secrets and dangers. The only sound breaking the stillness was the whisper of his own footsteps on the dead grass as he ventured into the heart of enemy territory. His solitary figure stood out against the temple ruins, a mortal defying the will of a kingdom of nightmares beneath a sky studded with indifferent stars. He crossed a small stone bridge, his feet passing over a stream of stagnant water that glowed with an unnatural, greenish light. He continued along the ruined path, each step bringing him closer to the epicenter of the danger he had sworn to confront. At last, he stopped before his target, a colossal, ancient banyan tree whose twisted branches seemed to scratch at the night sky. Although the data marked it as extremely dangerous, he reasoned that inspecting the tree was a necessary step to advance his exploration mission. From the depths of a forgotten well, the young hero's silhouette was outlined against the moon, a portent that he had fallen into yet another deadly trap. Faced with the ominous presence of an ancient well, Zhang Yuanqing's gamer instinct screamed that such places never bode well in horror stories, and with a chill he decided to go around it for now. His cautious detour led him beside a ruined wall, the young hero's silhouette a lone spot of life in the desolation of the courtyard under a starry sky. The silence of the night shattered with the crunch of a dry bone under his foot, a macabre reminder that he was not the first to walk this cursed ground. From amid the undergrowth rose the figure of a decomposing corpse, its face a skeletal, silent scream watching him from the darkness. With a confidence forged in countless encounters with death, Zhang Yuanqing inwardly boasted that, after having seen so many corpses, they no longer provoked the slightest fear in him. His improvised forensic analysis revealed a chilling detail. The skeleton was intact, but the head had been twisted 180 degrees, a death as violent as it was unnatural. Crouched beside the remains, Zhang Yuanqing sank into deep thought, his strategist's mind trying to decipher what kind of monstrous force could have perpetrated such an act. The night wind whispered through the tall grass as he remained crouched, a lone detective at a crime scene that defied all mortal logic. Suddenly, an unnatural whisper cut through the air, spectral voices emerging from the darkness of the woods that called Zhang Yuanqing by his true name. Color drained from Zhang Yuanqing's face when he heard his mortal name in this realm of nightmares, an impossible violation that chilled his blood and put him on high alert. The ghostly whispers continued to call his mortal name, an unrelenting echo in the oppressive silence of the haunted courtyard. With a determination forged in terror, Zhang Yuanqing slipped his hand under his clothes, searching for a weapon against the invisible threat. He took out the old bronze mirror, his only hope of revealing the true nature of the specter that haunted him. A black, viscous substance began to ooze from the surface of the mirror, writhing into an unnatural shape that defied all logic. From the blot of ink emerged the figure of a spectral woman, her long black hair floating like smoke as her voice called to Zhang Yuanqing once more. With her face hidden by a curtain of hair and blood, the apparition beckoned him with a skeletal finger, her voice a seductive, deadly command. "Come here, Zhang Yuanqing." Zhang Yuanqing's composure shattered in an explosion of rage and panic, a torrent of curses spilling from his mouth at the ghost's audacity. The echo of his name became an incessant torrent in his mind, a cascade of red syllables that threatened to drown his sanity. In the distance, atop the roof of a ruined pavilion, the lone silhouette of the apparition stood out against the starry sky, patiently waiting for its prey. The night wind whispered through the broken tiles, a silent lament that seemed to mock the fate of the young hero trapped in this spectral domain. The night wind blew through the temple eaves, a lonely whisper in the oppressive stillness of the accursed courtyard. Crouched in the darkness, Zhang Yuanqing caught his breath, relieved to realize that the spectral voice had not followed him this time. Recalling the report, he deduced a possible loophole in the banyan tree rule. The warning was not to look back, not to walk backward, a distinction that could be the key to his survival. Peering from his hiding place, a hint of hope mingled with fear as he considered that, if his theory were correct, he might return to the main hall without danger. A sudden, overwhelming longing swept over him, a desperate whisper escaping his lips as his composure crumbled. "I want to go home." Standing on the cold stone tiles, the young hero contemplated the way back, the tree's shadows casting dark claws over his precarious escape route. A sudden flash of movement behind the door's wooden lattice caught Zhang Yuanqing's attention, chilling the blood in his veins. He raised a hand instinctively, a useless gesture to protect himself from the presence he now felt on the other side of the barrier. A ghostly hand pressed against the wood from the inside, a surge of spectral energy emanating from the point of contact. With an explosion of violence, the door was smashed from the inside by a kick, the crash announcing the arrival of a new and terrifying horror. A swirling purple energy seeped through the dark threshold, causing Zhang Yuanqing's body to tremble involuntarily. The night wind blew through the tall grass, a lonely whisper that swept across the silent yard beneath the starry sky. The young hero stood motionless for a moment, the pavilion's ominous stillness weighing on him as he considered his next move. Resolved, he peered through the door, his gamer's mind recognizing that the only way forward was to venture into the unknown and explore. His eyes scanned the interior, an old kitchen or storeroom filled with clay pots and dust-covered shelves, searching for anything out of the ordinary. On a dusty table, his gaze fell on a lone wooden ladle, an object so mundane it stirred his curiosity. A vessel, a bright idea, born of old-world superstitions, struck him as he held the ladle aloft, recalling the legend that a child's urine can ward off evil spirits. However, an existential doubt assailed him, wondering whether, since he'd never had a girlfriend, he still qualified as a child for the talisman to work. With a flash of fury in his eyes, he cracked his knuckles, declaring with a new, cold determination that he had already given the monsters of this place too many opportunities to act with impunity. His gaze fixed on the wooden vessel, his resolve hardening as he prepared for his counterattack, armed with the most primitive of exorcism spells. After a moment of hesitation, cold sweat beaded on Zhang Yuanqing's forehead as he stared at the vessel in his hand, his mind struggling against the absurd but desperate idea. With a dull thud, he set the ladle on the table, the sound resonating in the silent room like a testament to his frustration. He moved to a barred window, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the starry night, seeking solace in the stillness. Breaking the silence, he began to recite an old adage, his voice a thoughtful murmur in the dark. As the saying goes, an old poem materialized in his mind, recounting the futile attempt to ward off a ghost with a child's urine and concluding that the true battle is fought in the heart. His cheeks flushed, he wrung out a soaked piece of paper, lamenting how wet it was after his failed and embarrassing attempt at exorcism. Suddenly his face lit up with a triumphant smile, giving himself a thumbs up of approval, exclaiming, "As expected of me." His attention shifted to an imposing wooden structure, the moonlight filtering through its vertical bars like the teeth of a colossal cage. Holding an axe he had found, he catalogued his loot mentally, dismissing the weapon as merely a psychological comfort with no real power. He stepped outside and, with a quick, practical movement, used the axe handle to bar the wooden door, securing his perimeter. With a steely resolve, Zhang Yuanqing peered from the threshold, ready to continue his exploration of the temple complex. His next destination was the second house, a dusty armory filled with weapons from a forgotten era. With a gesture of disdain, he tossed aside the axe and the stick, dismissing them as cheap, useless trash against the horrors of this realm. He recalled the information on his phone, recognizing that the existence of an armory in a temple of this period was, in fact, historically coherent. In a dark corner, his exploration was interrupted by a macabre find, not a skeleton, but a perfectly desiccated corpse. His analytical mind ran through the two ways a desiccated corpse can form: artificial preservation as a mummy, or natural formation in arid conditions. Ruling out natural formation due to the temple's humidity, he noted that the body showed no fatal wounds nor the crushed bones characteristic of the red dancing shoes. A closer examination revealed two distinctive holes in the neck, as if the fangs of a wild beast had sucked it dry. A flash of terror and understanding crossed Zhang Yuanqing's face as he realized the terrible implication of his discovery. In an instant, the corpse's hand shot out with unnatural speed, its bony fingers closing tightly around the young hero's wrist. Using the shaft of a halberd, Zhang Yuanqing freed himself from the corpse's iron grip, the sound of bones snapping reverberating through the silent armory. Now armed with a sword, his instincts screamed that a new presence lurked in the adjoining room. Crouched on the threshold, he regarded the bright light outside, a false beacon of safety amid the temple's oppressive darkness. Hidden behind a corner, bursts of spectral energy zipped past him, forcing him to seek safer cover. Trapped behind wooden bars, cold sweat beaded on Zhang Yuanqing's brow as he listened to the horrors stirring in the darkness. His search led him to a funerary chamber, where several ornate wooden coffins rested in sepulchral silence. On the floor lay two more mummified corpses, one of them clutching a gleaming golden object that stood out in the gloom. With the keen eye of a treasure hunter, Zhang Yuanqing noticed the object in the corpse's hand, initially identifying it as some kind of awl. A closer examination revealed the artifact's true nature: a Buddhist vajra, an ornamental dagger forged from gold and infused with ancient power. A lightning bolt of revelation flashed through her mind as she remembered the statue of the goddess, realizing that this vajra was the missing piece she had been holding in her empty hand. A sinister creak drew Zhang Yuanqing's attention. His face tightened as he heard the sound coming from the darkness. The heavy lid of one of the coffins began to shift, a crack of darkness slowly opening in the silence of the tomb. From the interior blackness, clawed fingers emerged, scratching the rim of the coffin with unnatural force. Pure terror seized Zhang Yuanqing's face, his eyes wide as he witnessed the nightmare's awakening. With an explosion of stagnant water, the creature leaped out of its wooden prison, its movement swift and predatory. On top of the coffin, bathed in a blood-red glow, stood a reanimated corpse, its body rigid, and its clothes from a forgotten era. The creature opened its jaws in an inhuman roar, the sound reverberating through the burial chamber like a scream torn from hell itself. A small Taoist priest appeared in his mind, confirming his worst fears. He was facing a Jiangshi, a fierce and powerful zombie. Now armed with a spear, Zhang Yuanqing understood the gravity of his situation, his instinct shouting that it was time to retreat to the safety of the main hall. With cold determination in his eyes and his breath fogging in the frigid air, Zhang Yuanqing braced himself for the imminent battle for his life. Cold sweat beaded on Zhang Yuanqing's brow, his blue eyes reflecting the crimson glow of impending danger as pure terror seized him. A mass of resentful energy, with 3 ember-red eyes, lunged at him, the weight of the beyond crushing his spirit. Panic overwhelmed him as he realized his time had run out. The resentful spirit had already latched onto his back, marking the end of his 15-minute grace period. With a stifled cry, he spun around and ran desperately for the exit, his small frame a manifestation of his overwhelming terror. A guttural, putrid roar emanated from the darkness, the sound of death itself pursuing him from the depths of the tomb. The Jiangshi's face, a mask of fury and decay with burning crimson eyes, contorted into a hunting scream as it lunged after its prey. In utter darkness, the zombie's red eye fixed on him, a solitary beacon of malice that marked him as its sole target. With an expression of pure exasperation, Zhang Yuanqing realized he was now trapped between a spectral parasite and a bloodthirsty zombie. His composure as a strategist shattered, and with tears in his eyes he ran for his life, screaming for his family as the resentful spirit drained his energy. The wooden door he had barred exploded into a shower of splinters, the Jiangshi's unstoppable power demolishing his flimsy barrier in an instant. Running along the stone railing, Zhang Yuanqing stopped abruptly, cold sweat beading his brow as he felt the pursuit at his back. A cadaverous, gray-skinned foot stepped out of the coffin, the first step of the nightmare reanimated in the world of the living. The Jiangshi exhaled a blast of icy air, its eyes glowing with an unnatural green light as its hunting instinct awakened. With a look of pure terror, Zhang Yuanqing turned, the cold sweat a testament to the speed and ferocity of the creature pursuing him. From above, Zhang Yuanqing's figure raced desperately across the courtyard with the resentful spirit on his back, while the Jiangshi moved to intercept him from below. His only hope was the main pavilion's door, a distant beacon of safety he sprinted toward with all his might, the ghost's purple energy a heavy shroud over him. The zombie landed in an unnatural, contorted pose, its agility defying all the laws of undeath, and leaving Zhang Yuanqing wondering why it was so modern. With a surge of supernatural power, the creature lunged forward, its green eyes a trail of fury in the darkness as it closed the distance with terrifying speed. Zhang Yuanqing's logic shattered, crying in disbelief that zombies were supposed to hop, not run with the flexibility of a predator. Overwhelmed by the terror and absurdity of his situation, he continued to flee, crying out to the sky that being chased by an agile zombie and a parasitic ghost was simply too much. With its arms outstretched like whips of darkness, the Jiangshi hurled itself from above, a nightmarish predator descending upon Zhang Yuanqing. The creature's impact on the stone ground reverberated through the courtyard like thunder, a display of raw power that made the air tremble. Barely dodging the lethal blow, Zhang Yuanqing brandished the sword he had recovered, his body moving with desperate grace in the gloom. In a bold move, he lunged toward the crouching zombie, his hand outstretched in an attempt to exploit the apparent opening. A flash of steel cut through the night, the sound of metal striking something as hard as diamond. A grunt of pain and frustration escaped Zhang Yuanqing's clenched lips as he felt the impact of his own failed attack. To his horror, he realized that the sword's blade, instead of cutting the monster, had sliced off his own hand, blood dripping onto the useless metal. The Jiangshi's body remained completely unscathed, a fortress of dead flesh that made him wonder whether it truly possessed bronze skin and iron bones. With a blood-freezing roar of fury, the Jiangshi lunged again, its green eyes glowing with the promise of imminent death. Its monstrous claw sliced through the air in a crimson arc, a death sentence plunging toward the now wounded and vulnerable Zhang Yuanqing. Trapped and with no escape, a curse slipped from Zhang Yuanqing's lips as desperation hardened into a cold, deadly resolve. With a screech of his shoes on the stone, he halted abruptly, his body turning to face the nightmare that pursued him. Armed with a scythe from the armory, he sprang forward, not in flight, but in a desperate charge against the monster that stalked him. The weapon gleamed with an unnatural light in his hands, his strategist's mind calculating the perfect angle for a decisive strike. With a battle cry that tore through the night, he swung the weapon in a deadly arc, aiming straight for the Jiangshi's neck. The blade sank into the zombie's dead flesh, but the colossal creature barely flinched, its relentless advance not even slowed by the wound. His attack failed, the scythe's blade striking the stone tiles with a resounding crash that echoed his failure. Forced into a defensive stance, he used the shaft of the weapon to keep the imposing zombie at bay, his muscles screaming from the effort of holding the beast back. His gaze fixed on the hole in the monster's chest, and a flash of understanding struck him. This was the big brother from the diary, the one whose heart had been ripped out. The Jiangshi let out a roar of pure fury, its green eyes shining with a malevolent intelligence as it prepared to annihilate the mortal who dared to challenge it. The Jiangshi's claw tore Zhang Yuanqing's clothes, the force of the impact sending him flying through the air like a leaf in a storm. He landed with a crash that shook the ground, a cry of pure agony escaping his lips as he felt the pain of the collision. The creature unleashed a roar of triumph, its jaws open in a display of primordial power and unbridled fury. With his last breath, Zhang Yuanqing shouted the words of power, invoking his only hope, corpse-suppressing talisman. In his hand, a golden talisman materialized out of nowhere, its light shining like a miniature sun in the oppressive darkness. The Jiangshi's green eyes narrowed in surprise and a hint of fear, its relentless advance finally halted by the sacred power. Barely evading a somersault, Zhang Yuanqing used the talisman as a shield, the blood from his wound splattering the air as the zombie lunged at him. From above, the scene revealed itself, the young hero on his knees, projecting a barrier of golden light that kept the leaping beast at bay. With renewed confidence, Zhang Yuanqing rose, warning the well ghost not to interfere and asking the spirit on his shoulder to calm down. Realizing that the talisman was working, the Jiangshi recoiled with a frustrated growl, its predator instinct recognizing the danger emanating from the small scrap of gleaming paper. Channeling the arrogance of a seasoned Taoist priest, Zhang Yuanqing held the glowing talisman aloft, silently daring the abomination to cross his path. In the desolate courtyard, the Jiangshi hesitated, its malevolent gaze fixed on the golden light radiating from the talisman, a stark contrast to the oppressive purple energy of the resentful spirit still clinging to Zhang Yuanqing's shoulder. With the monster temporarily held at bay, Zhang Yuanqing began a slow, calculated retreat toward the distant sanctuary of the main gate, each of his steps a gamble against the two horrors hunting him. His foot landed softly on the cracked stone path, a silent testament to his desperate attempt to escape without provoking the temporarily stunned Jiangshi. The retreat turned into a frantic dash toward the warm, welcoming light of the main hall, the resentful spirit a heavy shroud that drained his life and threatened to consume him before he reached safety. As he drew nearer to the sanctuary, the oppressive purple energy of the resentful spirit began to dissipate, its spectral form flickering and fading beneath the hall's sacred protection. Weakened and on the verge of collapse, Zhang Yuanqing stumbled across the threshold, his body crying out in protest as he finally crossed into the safety of the house. His foot crossed the invisible line, moving from the cursed ground of the courtyard into the sacred space of the main hall. With a firm stomp that echoed his relief, his foot landed securely inside, the single word saved, resonating in his soul like a divine proclamation. The heavy wooden doors slammed shut behind him with a thunderous bang, sealing him inside the sanctuary and leaving the horrors of the night to roar outside. He collapsed to the floor, the relief of having survived eclipsed by the sharp pain of the bleeding wound in his shoulder. Zhang Yuanqing's body fell to the ground limp, the pool of blood around him a grim reminder of his brush with death. With pale skin and blood-stained fingers, he confirmed the legend. The zombie's nails carried a deadly poison, just as Uncle Gio had warned. A cold stab of terror pierced him, and he whispered to himself, wondering whether he would die poisoned, alone and forgotten in this realm of nightmares. However, a strange calm washed over him, a total absence of fear that baffled him as he clutched his wounded shoulder. He realized the courage wasn't his, but a side effect of the candle's influence, a purification of his natural fear of death. Poisoned and with no time to lose, he knew he had to leave the safety of the hall and carry out his second and riskiest plan. His ultimate objective materialized in his mind with crystalline clarity, to master the dancing red shoes. He sat on the steps, reasoning that if the yellow talisman was a usable object, then the red shoes must be too, an opportunity to claim them if he could break their rule. He reflected on the impracticality of simply sticking a talisman to a zombie's forehead, acknowledging the need for a more elaborate strategy for his next encounter. He pictured the pathetic outcome, a failed attempt to stick a talisman on the zombie's forehead, an idea as absurd as it was useless. He understood that his plan was like a child challenging an adult with a knife. The adult might fear the blade, but the child lacked the strength to inflict real harm. His only anchor of sanity was the solitary flame of the inextinguishable candle, a beacon of false security in the oppressive darkness of the temple. Sitting on the ground, his head bowed under the weight of his imminent fate. Zhang Yuanqing fell into a strategic silence, the zombie venom coursing through his veins. Despite the poison, a strange calm washed over him as he prepared for his risky move, taking out the blue pills that were his only hope. With a resolution forged in the fire of desperation, he rose to his feet, his voice ringing in the silence with a challenge. If not me, then who will enter hell? He stepped into the courtyard and, with a voice that defied fate, shouted into the night. Come on, dancing red shoes. His solitary figure was silhouetted against the temple's imposing facade, a lone mortal summoning one of the kingdom's most lethal nightmares. The silence was broken by a rhythmic click, 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 the sound of heels approaching that tightened every muscle in his body. Among the tall grass, the crimson outline of the high heels materialized, their final click sounding like an executioner's hammer. The heels' final click rang on the steps of the main hall, their crimson silhouette a final invitation to a dance with death. Zhang Yuanqing jolted, his body tensing as he saw the red shoes materialize right in front of him, blocking his path. With a strangled curse, he realized that the shoes were now floating in the air, a crimson barrier cutting off his only escape route to the main hall. A voice echoed in his mind, revealing the object's terrible rule: accept the dance or face certain death, a choice as cruel as it was dreadful. Closing his eyes, he summoned the memory of his late father, a silent prayer asking for a blessing so that his brain overload ability would succeed. In the darkness of his mind, he concentrated, every ounce of his being focused on the looming challenge. A flash of turquoise light emanated from his eyes, the unmistakable sign that his special ability, his only trump card, had activated. His perception of time warped, his mind processing every possible move in a whirlwind of neon silhouettes, preparing to memorize the impossible dance. The world transformed into a digital grid, footprints of light falling from above as the trial began, each step a judgment on his life or death. With a final resonant touch, the heel of the red shoe struck the stone, the sound marking the beginning of the deadly dance. With the dance finished, the red shoe stopped, and a silent challenge rang in Zhang Yuanqing's mind. Your turn. In the crimson world of his overloaded brain, each of the shoe's chaotic, complex movements was recorded with perfect clarity, a library of deadly steps waiting to be replicated. With one hand over his heart, Zhang Yuanqing prepared himself mentally. He knew that everything, his life and his death, depended on this single, decisive dance. With a finger gesture that mimicked a gun, he began the dance, his body moving with a precision that defied his complete lack of experience. As his body contorted into a series of clumsy, embarrassing moves, Zhang Yuanqing found small consolation in that his only audience were the shoes, incapable of gossiping. He continued his dance with desperate determination, struggling to prevent his majestic image from being ruined forever by his terrible coordination. Under an imaginary spotlight, he extended his arms in a final, triumphant pose, having replicated every step without a single mistake. A perfect, painful victory. The price of his supernatural feat manifested as a tear of blood welling from his eye, a silent testament to the immense effort. Gasping, and with his face contorted in pain, blood dripped from his mouth and nose, the physical cost of pushing his ability to the limit. With one last derisive taunt about his terrible dancing ability, the dancing red shoes dissolved into a rain of crimson pixels, acknowledging their defeat. The red shoes dissolved into a cascade of data, their physical form fading before Zhang Yuanqing's eyes as the system processed his victory. A notification appeared, congratulating him on his dance but mocking his terrible skill, granting him only half an hour of the object's appreciation as a reward. The relief was short-lived, for he collapsed to the ground with a cry of agony, the cost of his supernatural feat finally taking its toll on his mortal body. In his trembling hand, the remaining blue pills were a reminder of the thin line he had walked between brilliance and death. He swallowed with difficulty, cold sweat beating on his neck as the weight of what he had just accomplished hit him like a hammer. Gasping on the floor, a single triumphant proclamation escaped his lips, a whisper that resonated with the weight of having defied death. Ah, I survived. A new system window opened, revealing his loot, the dancing red shoes, a footwear-type item with ominous tracking and hunting functions, whose story began with a princess from a Western kingdom. The legend told of a princess of unmatched beauty and talent, whose grace and dance captivated every man in the kingdom. But her gift became her curse, as the envy of her wicked stepmother loomed over her like a shadow, jealous of her talent and beauty. The cruel stepmother locked her in a tall tower, where the lonely princess danced under the cold light of the moon until death finally claimed her last breath. The legend concluded, explaining that the dancing red shoes had inherited the princess's will, condemned to wander and dance for all eternity. The description of the object revealed its two modes of use: a relentless hunt that ignored all physical obstacles, and a dangerous boost of agility that, if used for more than 5 minutes, would force you to run until you died. A second note revealed the object's petulant and deadly personality, a simple warning: "You refuse to dance, and I will trample you to death." With his eyes wide with amazement, Zhang Yuanqing couldn't help but exclaim at the artifact's divine power, an object governed by rules so ridiculously powerful that it ignored all physical barriers. However, a sigh of disappointment escaped his lips as he remembered the bitter reality. His control over this incredible power would only last half an hour. But his disappointment quickly turned into a sly, determined smile. For a strategist like him, half an hour was more than enough. In the silent stillness of the night, the sound of red heels rang out on the stone steps, breaking the quiet. Their owner didn't seem afraid, advancing step by step into the old house. Meanwhile, our protagonist was extremely tense, peeking out from behind a wooden pillar. He looked at the scene and realized the body, the coffin, and the bronze mortar are all still here. This left him very confused, wondering, where did the zombie go? Don't tell me it went back to bed. He couldn't find it, but he didn't know that a terrifying shadow was secretly watching him from behind. The protagonist murmured, "In games, monsters usually reset once you leave their territory, but I don't know." Suddenly, a creepy laugh sounded behind him, sending a chill down his spine. He turned around in alarm. A cold sweat ran down his back, and he had a bad feeling. Then a zombie with bright green eyes lunged at him, roaring savagely. Suddenly, the red heels flashed with a dazzling light, coming down hard onto the ground. Zhang Yuanqing was thrown backward by the impact, screaming as he smashed into a wall. With a quick motion, the heels dug into the stone pavement, throwing up sparks. Gasping, the young man found himself on his knees, realizing that he was now the one wearing the mysterious, gleaming red shoes. The enraged zombie unleashes a deafening roar, channeling its malevolent energy. Green energy beams shoot out of the monster's eyes, heading straight for Zhang Yuanqing. But with a resounding stomp of the red heel, the energy is redirected. Our hero, now imbued with incredible power, unleashes a flurry of acrobatic kicks at the creature. Each strike is swift and precise, displaying a strength and agility he didn't know he possessed. The zombie is left completely stunned, unable to comprehend how its own power has turned against it. The protagonist falls clumsily, landing in a painful split. Zhang Yuanqing screams inwardly, "Careful, my balls. You're going to break them." His face is full of panic. Kneeling on the ground, he screams desperately, "Wait," as the shoes seem to lose their power momentarily. However, the power of the red heels returns with fury, and with a mighty stomp, they shatter the stone floor before the astonished zombie. Propelled by this mysterious force, the young man delivers a devastating double kick straight to the creature's face. The zombie is sent flying backward, unable to withstand the incredible force of the impact. Without wasting a second, the young man pulls out a yellow paper talisman that glows with a golden light, preparing for the final blow. The creature, still recovering from the blow, roars in rage and pain. With a war cry, Zhang Yuanqing lunges forward and presses the shining talisman against his enemy. The talisman adheres to the zombie's forehead, which screams in agony as it is enveloped by the sacred power. The zombie falls motionless, completely paralyzed by the sacred talisman on its forehead. Zhang Yuanqing sighs with relief, sweat running down his face after the intense battle. At last the threat has been neutralized, and a momentary calm settles over the courtyard. But his relief turns to panic as he feels a sharp, sudden pain. The protagonist cries out in agony, clutching his groin as the aftereffects of wearing the red high heels take hold. A mysterious voice whispers from the shadows, "Huh. You finally calmed down." Our hero reflects, exhausted. Without the help of the red dancing shoes, dealing with the zombie alone would have been very difficult. With a determined look, Zhang Yuanqing knows his mission is not over yet, and thinks, next. He stands before a dark well and boldly declares, "It's your turn, Miss Ghost." However, he pauses and adds to himself, but before that, he approaches the now immobilized zombie and notices the golden mortar lying on the ground. Without hesitation, he crouches down and picks up the ornate weapon. Zhang Yuanqing examines the dagger, feeling a strange power emanating from it. A system window appears identifying the weapon as the demon-subduing mortar, a powerful item that purifies spirits at the cost of the user's life force. He thinks to himself, so it really is an item. Confirming his suspicions, he realizes that the construction worker must have tried to use this mortar to fight the zombie, but ultimately failed. That group couldn't control the power of the red dancing shoes either, and many were trampled to death. And when they finally confronted the zombie, they were massacred, powerless to do anything. Time is running out, and he notes. Only 5 minutes left. The resentful spirit that climbs on his shoulders is about to appear. Looking into the dark well, he steels his resolve, thinking, I have to use this time to finish off the female ghost. Zhang Yuanqing leans over the well. His face tense as he searches for any sign of movement. He thinks to himself, where's the female ghost? I clearly saw a faceless woman emerge from the well. He grips the demon-subduing mortar tightly, his only reliable weapon against spirits. With a determined look, he realizes he can't afford to waste any more time. Our protagonist decides to return to the main hall first, knowing the 15 minutes are about to run out. Once inside, he sits on the floor and examines his arm, feeling a growing unease. He realizes with horror, the poison from the corpse is spreading deeper through my body. I'm beginning to feel short of breath, with pain in my heart and lungs. My time is running out. While he rests, he reflects. I've already explored both courtyards and even subdued the zombie, but the mission isn't over. I'm sure I've searched every room, even the old well. With urgency growing, his eyes scour the surroundings as he asks himself, where could it be? Desperate, he searches every corner of the desolate property again, looking for any clue he may have overlooked. Sitting on the ground, Zhang Yuanqing realizes the courtyards are completely explored, except his gaze falls on the large statue as he murmurs, the main hall. Now he understands everything, thinking, obviously, I'm supposed to place the demon-subduing mortar here. With a new purpose, he climbs onto the altar, approaching the statue's outstretched hand. He firmly sets the golden mortar into the statue's stone grasp. Jumping back to a safe distance, he waits to see what will happen. A rumble begins as cracks start to form at the base of the statue. With a steady gaze, he watches as the pedestal begins to crumble. The base shatters completely, revealing a dark secret passage that leads downward. With a confident smile, Zhang Yuanqing stands before the newly revealed entrance. A mysterious female voice seems to confirm his actions, saying, correct. The dark, dusty passage promises more secrets and dangers ahead. Rummaging through the statue's rubble, he searches for anything he might have missed, and he finds it. A golden mortar, identical to the one that had been in the statue's hand, gleams brightly. Holding the weapon, he senses the source of the temple of the mountain god's fall is probably inside this cavern. He remembers the item's description, which says that by offering blood as a sacrifice, one can obtain divine power to dispel the darkness. However, a note in the description unsettles him. The observation is a little disturbing. Powerful? Sure, but at the cost of your life. Despite the risk, he knows, the Vajra must be a key item for the rest of the exploration. Sighing in resignation, he prepares to make the necessary sacrifice, thinking, I have no other choice. With a decisive movement, Zhang Yuanqing plunges the golden dagger into his side, drawing his own blood. Immediately, a crackling golden energy rises from the Vajra, enveloping his arm in a radiant power. Despite the obvious pain on his face, he stands firm as the divine energy flows through his body. His eyes ignite, transforming into orbs of bright yellow that cut through the gloom. He realizes that the Vajra did not dispel the darkness, but granted him the ability to see through it. The dizziness, shortness of breath, and chest pain, all the negative effects of the poison, fade away completely. The protagonist confirms with relief that the corpse poison inside him has been purged, accepting the high price of this power. A trail of golden light streams from his eyes, a testament to the power of the sun god now running through his veins. His eyes now blaze with a blinding intensity, radiating an immense and supernatural force. With his new vision, he ventures into the secret passage and notices that the walls bear marks of human excavation, revealing it was not formed naturally. A mysterious voice declares that at the end of the passage should be the greatest mystery of the dungeon of the spiritual realm. Suddenly, Zhang Yuanqing hears a cry of help that seems to come from the bright light before him. Driven by curiosity and concern, he advances cautiously down the dark corridor. The passage is filled with eerie whispers that seem to emanate from the very light itself. As he approaches, the rectangular white light explodes with a blinding flash and a high-pitched sound. The protagonist freezes, his face pale with sweat, and his expression one of pure terror at what he sees. Before him rises a grotesque tree made entirely of skulls and tormented faces, glowing with a sinister red light.